Join the Betamax Video Club, rewinding back to our favourite films of the 1980s. My name's Rich Nelson, and tonight I've rented A View to a Kill. Watching it with me is Marty from Thunderballs.org. Hi Marty, how are you?
Very well, Rich, very well. I'm all set for this. I've got quite a few pages of notes. Yeah, too many.
And now, this is one that we have been plotting for months. The big question, what's so special about this film for you?
I knew you were going to ask me this. But it's kind of, it's a film wrapped up in nostalgia, really, for me. And it kind of started because my mother took me to see Octopussy when I was 7. And that basically cemented my fascination with the character. And obviously, like everyone else, I'd seen them on TV, but the cinematic experience is what kind of hit it home. So from there, I was really kind of geared up to see A View to a Kill when it came out in '85. And one of the things which kind of increased the hype at the time was the promotional campaign by Smiths. We did a campaign to collect tokens on packets of Smiths crisps, and you could choose a poster. Now I've misremembered this as well, because I was kind of reading about some of the promotional stuff. In my mind, for years, for decades, I had it in my mind that it was 25 tokens you had to collect.
Right.
It was actually, there was a set of 3 posters. If you got 10 tokens, you got 1 poster.
Okay.
20 tokens, you got 2 posters. And if you got 30 tokens, you got all 3. Oh. So I missed out there. Seriously missed out.
Well, I can't remember vaguely, because I know my cousin had one of the posters with the tokens just on the back of the packets, weren't they?
They were, yeah. And you'd basically be hassling people in the schoolyard. Can I have your crisp packet? And they'd be like, well, what's it worth? And I mean, it's like, and they start bartering with you, because it was all about bartering back in those days, wasn't it? It's like, well, I will give you this crisp packet, but I want that Panini sticker that you've got, that football sticker. And you'd be like, oh, okay, yeah, you can have it, yeah.
One Bond poster token is worth a shiny Kenny Dalglish or something like that.
Basically, yeah. or it was Star Wars stickers or something like that.
Of course.
So everyone was bartering with. But yeah, so the Smiths campaign kind of, amongst other things, kind of got me really geared up for watching the film, because Roger was my Bond at the time. I grew up watching Roger, loved him, didn't give a shit that he was 56 going on 57 when he did it. It wasn't something on my agenda at all, just didn't care. I was sold. I
mean, I know we talked about this when we spoke on the phone a couple of weeks ago. And I mean, we could have released that as a podcast on its own. But I was probably a couple of years behind. I think the first Bond film I saw at the cinema was A Living Daylights. But this was the first one that I had on video, whether it was Betamax or VHS, can't remember. And I've just had this sort of love for this film because I think it was my first Bond film. And I know, we've been joking a little bit and inviting some comments on Twitter and that about our memories of the film. And I know a couple of people, when we talked about doing this film, they were kind of cautious that, this doesn't become a big love-in. And I have to apologise in advance, because let's be honest, it probably will be.
Yeah, we've established the fact that we both really like this film, I think. But saying that, I'm quite happy to dissect it and rip the piss out of it, because it's there to be entertained and enjoyed. And for all the things that people criticise it for, this film, I actually enjoy it for all those reasons.
I mean, some of the parts of it that we talked about, there are flaws. There are, in parts, quite obvious, blatant flaws that are clearly ridiculous. However, maybe that's what makes it so good. I mean, having done the previous 2 Bond films, For Your Eyes Only and Octopussy, they were films that I enjoyed, I liked, but I didn't have the same attachment to as probably this one. And maybe it was just because I had this one and I'd seen it more on video, or it was a little bit silly in parts, or even more silly than the Tarzan swing or something like that. But I mean, rewatching it again, in the last couple of days, there was no part of me that kind of went, oh God, what was I doing? I enjoyed every minute of it.
It's full of really good stuff. The performances are great. The score itself is fantastic.
Oh, yes.
John Barry pulling it out of the hat again. The casting's brilliant. The unusual casting of Christopher Walken and Jones could have been Bowie and Jones. I mean, that's even more ridiculous. Would have been fantastic. But Walken and Jones, the pre-title sequence is one of my favourites, despite the criticisms of the Beach Boys track, the start, kind of shoehorned in. But as I said, for all the reasons that people moan at it, and criticise it for. I actually enjoy those moments.
I was going to save this for a bit later, but I mean, you mentioned it, the fact that David Bowie was at one point announced to be playing the role of Zorin. It seems like he and Grace Jones on paper would probably make a better pairing, but I mean, his quote apparently or the reason why he came out or turned the role down was, I didn't want to spend 5 months watching my stunt double fall off cliffs. Now, I suppose being on set on a Bond film, there are a lot of takes. There probably is a lot of sitting around and not doing an awful lot. I mean, for all that would have been spectacular looking back, and obviously in the last couple of years since Bowie died, that would have been another nostalgia thing, another thing to revisit. But I mean, I can't imagine this film without Christopher Walken.
Definitely not, no.
That was the first thing, and for a long time it was the only thing I'd ever seen him in. For me, he was Zorin, and that was it. Later on I found the numerous other roles he did, and I did the Dead Zone podcast last year, and he was great in that. But I mean, this was just Zorin and Walken were just electric, and even watching it now, it was full of, I suppose, peak Walken moments.
He looks like an actor that's approached the role in the right way. He's basically just thought, I'm going to have a bit of fun with this. He's gone out to have fun. He's laughing a lot in the film. Throughout the film, there's quite a few moments where he just starts laughing, and I kind of think that that's partly just Walken in the situation rather than the character in a way.
But he makes it look so realistic because I guess part of the laughing could be explained by the fact that, going into the plot a little bit, is that he's essentially a genetically engineered superhuman by a Nazi genetic doctor, and the fact that he's a psychotic, which is mentioned a couple of times, as a part of the side effect of how he came to be. But
we find very stressful situations kind of quite humorous.
Yeah, and I mean, ultimately, spoiler, at the end, or his final act in the film, he plummets off the Golden Gate Bridge laughing, or at least at first.
There's a kind of a good anecdote from Walken when he was filming that moment. The laugh. I mean, it seems like the laugh was unintentional. I don't think it was scripted. There's a little quote that I found, and Walken says, "I was hanging there. I was about to fall off the bridge onto some mattresses, and it struck me as funny. That's all. It wasn't so much the character as it was me laughing at the situation." Now, I think that's brilliant. In fact, they just left it in. Thought, we'll hook that in with the. We're spoiling the film, aren't we? Start at the end. It works perfectly. The editing, John Glenn did a great job. If that was unintentional and it wasn't scripted, then he made it work.
Now, I suppose for any film and a podcast looking at a particular film, there's no better place to start than the end. But perhaps it's time to go back to the beginning. Now, you mentioned the pre-title sequence. You mentioned the Beach Boys music that wasn't the Beach Boys, but there was a link to the Beach Boys, so it wasn't a complete rip-off. But, I mean, this essentially, so set in the Soviet Union, because this was 85, Bond had to retrieve a microchip from 003's dead body. Now, this was the second Bond film in a row that featured a dead 00 agent in the sort of opening sequence, or at least the opening part of the film. Yeah. And then that followed in the next film as well, where a couple died in Gibraltar.
That's right. Yeah.
Bond trying to get away from Soviets trying to kill him. It was almost like The Spy Who Loved Me, but this one didn't have a huge stunt, but it was iconic in its own way.
Yeah, it was good. I mean, well, saying that though, I mean, for the sequence, there's actually the film opens up with the gun barrel. It's like a shot of a really dodgy model helicopter flying away from the camera, like wobbling away from the camera. It's baffling because they clearly had a helicopter on set, didn't they?
Yeah.
When they were filming on location, they had a helicopter. And you think, why would they do that? They put in shot of the film. Crazy that they would do that. I'm happy to suspend disbelief.
Bond dressed all in white in his giant sunglasses. I suppose it shows how jammy, lucky Bond is that all these other 00s, who I assume must be trained to the same elite standards, they all seem to perish quite easily. And yet he manages to get away. He's always either taking stuff off their dead bodies or finding them at the bottom of cliffs. But so he gets the microchip from the locket. Now we find out that this is a microchip that has been designed to be impervious to electromagnetic pulses.
Right.
Which I suppose is the the other kind of plot of the film. It's Zorin's plot to take over the microchip world, which I guess in the 80s must have looked really like the upcoming thing. I suppose, if it'd been in the 2000s, it'd be taken over the internet, or even now taken over, I don't know, something like Uber.
Yeah. Yeah, you'd have to bring it up to date a little bit, wouldn't you? Yeah, I mean, I don't know if you're a fan of the Suits of James Bond Spacer's website. I've been having a wee look at that before I went on. I like to peruse his website. It's fantastic. He's written little pieces about all the outfits and the Bogner, the ski suit. He mentions on his site that it was sold for auction in 2014 for 3,750 quid.
Blimey.
Which is, somebody's got that, you know what I mean? Somebody's got that. They bought that. They were delighted.
It's probably someone who's never even been skiing. They just love the film.
But they were on the phone to their missus or their mum, straight away saying, I bought Roger Moore's ski suit from the pre-title sequence of You to a Kill. And then they thought, right, well, I've got this thing now. I'm going to have to get like a custom-made glass kind of cabinet to put it in with a mannequin. You would have to, though, wouldn't you? What are you going to do? You're going to put it on a hanger and just put it in your cupboard.
I mean, you buy these things to show them off. I mean, for me, if I had that argument, my wife would just turn around and say, right, so that's 2 months of childminders you've just wasted. I mean, it's bad enough when I bought that Betamax copy of Superman 4 on eBay. And she kind of laughed at me and just went, one, it's an American one, and two, you don't even have a Betamax player anymore, so what are you doing?
Wait, no, I thought you did, Rich. I thought that was the whole thing.
It's the brand. I'm a charlatan. But it's funny because having listened to Matt and Pete Brooker's podcast from Tailors with Love, and they talk about a lot of the outfits that have been either on screen or prepared for Bond films, and when they go to auction. And I suppose you don't even think of that ski wear as a Roger Moore iconic one, but if you love this film, everything in it is iconic.
Yeah, absolutely.
Even if it's a bright white snowsuit and the sort of sunglasses you get after you've had an operation.
They're massive, aren't they? Massive. I mean, everyone was sort of saying how they were so big because it was trying to hide his wrinkles and everything. But I think that's a bit mean on Roger.
Yeah.
A bit mean.
I mean, we had this discussion on the previous episodes, and it's such an easy stick to beat Roger Moore with his age, and even at this point we're talking now, I mean, we're the better part of a year away from the next Bond film, and Daniel Craig isn't that far behind. I think he was the same age that Moore was when Moonraker came out.
Yeah.
I don't have a problem with it. I mean, obviously, there'd been times in the run up to previous films where he hadn't been or hadn't looked like he was going to be James Bond again, and in this one he kind of made it clear that this was his swan song. And having recently finally opened my book of the James Bond archives.
Well, you finally opened it.
I finally did it, just as prep for
How long
this.
was it sitting on your shelf for before you opened it?
I think I bought it they re-released it after Spectre came out, and that was when I got it. So it's been sat there for best part of 3 years now.
Oh man, I destroyed my copy.
And I was going through that, and there were quotes in there, and it was the usual stuff when he said about how if the Bond girl's mum is your age, it's time to hang up your whatever. But I mean, it just doesn't bother me at all. I love Roger Moore films, and part of me just looks like we could go back to the time when he looked like he was living the absolute life. The photos on your website of him playing backgammon behind the scenes with Cubby Broccoli. Yeah, I mean, that's just what a life.
Oh, he was loving it. I mean, he always said that in interviews that he really enjoyed playing the part. He just kind of enjoyed himself on set. It shows, though. You can tell by his performances that he's enjoying it. But in terms of that pre-title sequence, though, is that, and one of the things that is criticised for, which I actually enjoy. I actually enjoy the fact that he wasn't actually on location at all. It was just he was just at Pinewood, and I like that. But at the same time, even knowing that fact, I can still be that young boy watching it for the first time and have complete belief in what's happening in front of my eyes.
And I mean, the second unit stuff did work. I think it was filmed in Iceland, wasn't it? The other parts, and again, the editing of this film, for all the issues, the editing was pretty good. I mean, the fact that they cut these various, from location to Pinewood to miniature, and maybe this is the scene where the miniatures look the worst, but they've cut it together really well.
Well, that was the kind of one of the hallmarks of John Glenn, though, wasn't it, as a director? Because he was an editor before he stepped into the director's shoes.
Yeah.
He knows how to cut things together and make it work. And it absolutely does. I mean, just little bits, like there's the bit where he's just taken the microchip. But before that, there's a wee kind of foreshadowing shot of him just on that kind of arch, like a snow arch or whatever it is next to you. And there's a wee shot of that before the action kicks off, and that basically kind of falls, that breaks up, doesn't it? That bit of, but it's a nice little bit of foreshadowing with the shot. So when it happens, you're like, oh shit, it's stunt double glory time, isn't it?
Yeah, I mean, we've got something coming up a little bit later, which has a good little play on that theme. I mean, Roger Moore, I would have loved to have seen Roger Moore snowboarding.
Imagine that, the way it wouldn't have looked quite as graceful as the man that did it.
He'd have done it with a cigar on the go.
He would have, yeah. That's another thing about Rog. Anytime you see a behind the scenes still of Rog, he's pretty much always got a cigar in his hand.
Yeah.
Even on set, even in between the actual takes. There's the shots from Moonraker where you see him and he's doing the test at the wrist gun. And he's got a cigar in his mouth. And you're like, did he have a guy on the side of the stage just lighting his cigars for him? He must have done.
There must be someone on IMDb whose credit is Roger Moore's cigar man.
Yeah, he's there with a lighter and an ashtray, and that's his job. You know what I mean? If you were that man for Roger in the 1980s, get in touch, please.
I mean, it's funny that I know podcast Exploding Helicopters, who will, and they have done, they've looked at this film and dissected in forensic detail the fact that the helicopter explodes and how it happens. Yeah. I mean, to us, I suppose, it's a very small detail. He shoots it down with a flare, and the miniature goes off and explodes into a great big glacier. But the part afterwards, again, watching it now in 2019, of course, because he's on a mission, he's got a submarine to escape into with the Union Jack hatch. It's subtle branding. It
is subtle. I mean, that was a big. I mean, there's a few big nods in this sequence, isn't it? I mean, the first big nod is like when the action kicks off. I don't know if you've ever noticed this, but the soundtrack, the John Barry soundtrack, is like a huge nod to the Majesty's Secret Service soundtrack. Yeah. The bit of that bass line, that descending bass line, is just the score for Majesty's, isn't it, basically? But then he's ramped it up, Barry, hasn't he? He's thought, right, what am I going to do here to make it better? I'll put a squealing guitar solo over the top of it.
Mid-80s galore.
It's fantastic. Yeah, so then you've got the Union Jack thing is the Spy 11, isn't it? Kind of coming to the rescue.
Yeah, in a submarine that looks like the thing out of Dumb and Dumber, the van. But he turns up and of course he's got his incredibly attractive female blonde assistant. There's a proper sort of Me Too moment where he gets the caviar and vodka out. So obviously he's been doing all this skiing and snowboarding with a big bottle of vodka and caviar on him. It's like just coming back from your weekly shop.
Yeah, but I mean, he's nailing it right from the off, isn't he? I mean, it's like it's a heck of a crowd on the piste. It's like, oh, he sells it. And then he says, be a good girl, will you? Put her on automatic.
Yeah.
But he says it and his mouth's not even moving.
A lot of ADR work.
His mouth's not even moving. And then Mary Staben, she says, I'll make a signal to M, and then her lips aren't moving either. It's just like, this is where we're going with this podcast, Rich. You know what I mean? This is the level of detail.
It needs to be done. I mean, I say I didn't invite you here just for your Zorin t-shirt that you're wearing.
And while we're here, Rich, loving the use of the sexy sax by John Barry in this section. I mean,
yes. You know, there's some love happening.
Yeah, I mean, cunningly inserted on the nose audio tip-off that Bond's about to have some sexy time for the next 5 days.
Cunningly inserted. That's the way. That's Bond's motto, isn't it?
Sexy sax. Yeah, he brings that back in later as well. Yeah. We'll get there.
I mean, imagine 5 days to Alaska of him lusting after her. I mean, it'd be Yakety Sax that would be playing then, chasing her around this little submarine. And come on.
Yeah, but it took a lot out of him, though, didn't it?
Clearly. Take a lot out of me. Now, this is all this. This is enough to cover a podcast on its own. Yeah. We've got the title sequence and the theme tune. Now, I was accused after the last episode of hating a little bit on All Time High, which isn't strictly true. I just found it mediocre. Duran Duran's theme, top 5 easily for me.
Yeah, it's one of the best ones for me as well.
And the way the theme, and I know it was Duran Duran and John Barry, the way the theme of it kind of worked throughout the score as well. But this is one, you hear this on the radio all the time. It's not often you hear, maybe it's just the radio station I listen to. And the fact that the video was them at the Eiffel Tower sort of really getting into it as well.
Yeah, totally. It's a great song. It's a bit like, I'm going to compare like the way that this song makes me react emotionally is a bit like, and I'll just tell the story very quickly, right? But when I was a kid and when the show Miami Vice was on TV, I used to have to go to bed at 9 o'clock when Miami Vice started. I used to beg my mother if I could just watch the title sequence of Miami Vice, right? And it was just that synthy music. I used to just love it. And whenever I hear that Jan Hammer opening theme, it sort of makes the hair stick up on my arm, so it gives me goosebumps. And it's partly to do with nostalgia, but partly just because I like that sound. And it's exactly the same feeling I get when I hear that first few seconds of the Duran Duran song. It's those gated kind of drums and the sound of those synths when they come in. It's just fantastic.
And I think it works so well because we're, I guess the 80s, certainly in the UK anyway, was such a defining era for music, and Duran Duran were kind of at the time really big. And then looking back at it now, and I guess we have, the more recent Bond films, we've had some very up and down efforts. I won't even talk about the last one. I made a joke. We went to a farm for my daughter's birthday where there were some otters yelling, and I just thought, oh, it's Sam Smith. But we've gone from the Shirley Bassey era to back towards Adele, and, even the Jack White and Alicia Keys one. Odd, but I suppose at least it's recognisable. But this one, it just works so well. I just love it, and I guess maybe it is me being an 80s kid and everything and hearing it every 5 minutes, but I bloody love it.
It works, yeah, it totally works. It's kind of bass-driven tune, which is the actual bass line of it is what really kind of drives it home. But it's I think, reading about the track, have you heard there's a book called The Music of James Bond?
Yes, yeah.
Heard that, because they mentioned the fact that it was produced by Bernard Edwards, who was the co-founder of Chic, who's Nile Rodgers. He was the bass player in Chic as well. So basically, he was also in the Power Station with...
okay, Robert Palmer,
yeah. Yeah, Rob Palmer and the bass player in Duran Duran.
Taylor,
yeah, John Taylor, yeah. So at the time, yeah, he was actually dating a James Bond girl at that point, one of the Janine Andrews who's in Octopussy, and he kind of was a huge James Bond fan and just basically sort of balls his way into the situation. But I think the fact that he was leading the charge, and I think that he got Bernard Edwards and the bass player, that's what made it, I think. This was the one that did the final touches on the production after John Barry had done his bits. And
so we got to weave them together. One thing I did like was the actual credits, and again it's Maurice Binder doing his quality stuff. There were the scenes, there were ice sculptures, and the way that the line "dance into the fire," and of course there was a woman dancing into fire.
Yeah, exactly. Yeah.
But these things happen for a reason.
They do. But who can criticise a title sequence that literally starts with a girl unzipping her jacket to reveal a bare chest with the words "Albert R. Broccoli presents Roger Moore as Ian Fleming's James Bond 007" written in neon paint on her breasts?
I was about to say, that's a pretty weird tattoo if you're finding that for the first time.
Binder knew what he was doing. He's basically saying, he's grabbing you by the shirt lapel and going, fucking look at this. And you go, all right.
It's a bullseye.
Attention.
Oh, I miss those days.
The saying, they don't make them like they used to, kind of does apply here.
Yeah, you can't get away with it now, and perhaps rightly so, but yeah, very much part of young me.
I don't know. I don't know what I thought of these title sequences back in the day. I don't know. I probably was kind of interested in what was going on.
Yeah.
But I don't. Yeah, it took me a wee bit later till I kind of started going, wait a minute, she's not wearing any clothes.
Is that a nipple?
Just a bit of bush.
That finishes, and we cut to the Ministry of Defence. We've got Q showing off his latest toy. It's a remote control surveillance dog or fucking something. A little bit of exposition, and this is where we're talking about the microchip that Bond's recovered from 003. And I think I mentioned it in both the previous episodes, or the Bond ones, where this is where Roger Moore is. And I think I saw this actually in one of the notes from the Taschen book, basically saying Bond is a know-it-all.
Oh, yeah.
And every single thing he knows about. Now, EMPs, the electromagnetic pulse, that was a key part of the plot from GoldenEye as well. And it's been in, I think there was a phase in the 90s where it was quite a common thing. It was in that Broken Arrow film as well.
Yeah.
And yet, Roger Moore, he must find some time somewhere between shagging the help and learning to snowboard, and still find time to research all this stuff before Wikipedia came out.
Exactly, yeah. He knows his stuff. He does know his stuff. I love how earnest Roger Moore is in that moment when he's lecturing them about toasters.
Like he's got a bog standard toaster. He's probably got someone to do it for him.
All microchips were susceptible to damage from the intense magnetic pulse of a nuclear explosion.
Magnetic pulse?
Yes, Minister. One burst in outer space over the UK, and everything with a microchip in it, from, the modern toaster to the most sophisticated computers and our defense systems, would be rendered absolutely useless.
Well, he's probably got one designed by Q. You'd like to think, anyway.
Either that, or he found a job for Knick-Knack.
Maybe.
And this is where Zorin's name comes up for the first time, because it turns out that the Soviets are designing a microchip that is identical to one that Silicon Valley are working on. Sure. And this is a sort of something that gets mentioned again at the end, and as more of a joke that perhaps Zorin is responsible, or at least aware, for these leaks of what's going on in the factories that he owns. It's pretty special. We'll cover it later on, but Zorin Industries, the company, has a very unique, but a very interesting way of branding.
Oh,
it yes. is everywhere.
I hope you won't be surprised to know that I've compiled a list of every single branded moment from the film that I spotted.
Is it on Zorin Industries notepaper?
It is, yeah, of course.
Yeah, go on, give us a rundown.
It's ridiculous, right? I do enjoy a baddie that's got a strong sense of branding. By trade, I'm a graphic designer, so I love this shit. Like Drax's iconic logo, basically, it appears on everything. So on the microchip itself that he produces, it's on there. The henchman lapel patches, it's on there. On his checks, it's on the crates in his warehouse. It's on his cardboard boxes. It's on his computer operating system on his PC in his office. It's on his horse saddle, fucking horse saddle.
Yeah.
It's a sticker on the side of his Range Rover. And the best one for me is the one that you'd like to have as a collector, wouldn't you? It's the one behind Zorin's chair in the conference room airship. The silver one. Plus, it's on the inner exterior door of the airship as well. It's on the letterhead in the info packs held by the associates on the airship. I'm sorry if I'm sort of going through.
No, this is good.
Yeah. It's on the side of the oil pumping station office. It's on the back of the boiler seats worn by the staff at the oil pumping station. It's on the caps of the staff at the oil pumping station, and the driver entrance to the mine. It's on there as well, and on the hard hat that Bond receives when he arrives at the mine, on the covers of the mine carts, on the brown paper bags that hold the explosives. You still with me, Rich?
Yeah.
It's everywhere. It's fucking everywhere. The only place that he's not put it, rather disappointingly, is on the bomb itself, I think.
I thought that would be a Zorin Industries device. This is the sort of thing he'd have maybe it was a birthmark. Even someone like Richard Branson would probably go, oof, too much. Branding
everywhere. There's nothing that he's not thought of in terms of branding.
And bear in mind as well, we're in the mid-80s. Fast forward to now, he'd be responsible for, he'd have his branding at the side of the World Cup final, and Britain's Got Talent is sponsored by Zorin Industries, and I love it.
Yeah, it's fantastic, yeah.
It's funny, we talked about earlier the T-shirt that you've got, and also Drax, because the James Bond official shop on the website, they have brought out some utter shit and sell extortionate prices. But recently they did bring out a villains range of merchandise, and these T-shirts were part of them with the Zorin and the Drax logo. And I mean, they were fantastic.
I think they're my favourite bits of merch that they've sold of late.
I mean, some of the stuff on there, I mean, you've got 007 branded all sorts. I mean, fair enough, the posters are fine, but, they didn't really have many T-shirts or anything like that. And, a T-shirt would be perfect. Although I did find it strange they had a Dr. No beach towel for about 50 quid, which seems slightly pricey. But,
slightly expensive, yeah. On the expensive side. It's not something you buy on a whim, is it?
No. I mean, I got a Peppa Pig one last year for the kids, but I was at Peppa Pig World. I was a hostage. A bit like on Dr. No's Island. So we've had the talk about Zorin. Bond is told to get properly dressed, and it's because we go to Ascot.
Yes.
This is where we see Zorin for the first time with Mayday and the whole thing about the horse. Now, Zorin's horse Pegasus wins this race in a very suspicious style. I suppose it's, we're only 3 years before Ben Johnson won the 100 metres when he was, I suppose, Zorined up. And one thing I always remember was when M was giving Bond a bit of a briefing about Zorin. He said he speaks 5 languages with no accent. Is that just a Christopher Walken thing? Does he speak 5 languages as Christopher Walken?
You'd have to, wouldn't you? And try and do a Christopher Walken impression, because that would just be foolish, wouldn't it?
Yeah, I mean, I've got a very small command of a couple of languages, and I wouldn't dare to talk them in the Christopher Walken way. It's probably just my stilted way of talking. But for someone who's supposed to be is it a French industrialist, I think?
Yeah.
I mean, they know a lot about him, and then the fact they spy on him in the box at Ascot, just doing the horses. I mean, like the KGB reference a little bit later on. He's not shy about his activities. They are drawing a lot of attention.
Totally. Absolutely, yeah.
And when you sympathise with the KGB, you know you're doing something wrong.
In this, it's a funny sort of sequence, because they basically think it's like a day out for the cast, isn't it?
Yeah.
Do you know what I mean? It's like they thought, we need to give him a wee trip out of the office.
Yeah.
I mean, there's no real reason for Lois Maxwell to be there, is there?
No, but I suppose it's like an office party, isn't it?
I think it's Cubby, isn't it? He's saying, it's a last film. Poor Lois Maxwell. She would have liked to have continued, wouldn't she?
Probably, but I think it was perhaps the right time to bow out for both of them.
Yeah, I mean, I read a nice thing actually that Lois Maxwell stated that she was called personally by Cubby to say that she wouldn't be returning in the next Bond film because he didn't want her to hear about it in a letter or by hearing about it in the press, which I think is quite nice.
But I think after that many films, I suppose it was like a family. I mean, this was Roger Moore's 7th, and I can't even count back to how many she'd have been in. Being part of one of the world's first film franchises like that, it must be a proper family sort of feel on the set.
Absolutely, yeah. I mean, they've been together for so long, haven't they? Lois Maxwell wouldn't have shared any scenes with Desmond Llewellyn, would she? Did they share any scenes together prior to this one?
I suppose 90 to 95% of her scenes would have been
just in the office, wouldn't they?
In the office, unless was she at Bond's wedding on Her Majesty's Secret Service?
Yeah, she was.
I mean, they'd have been there together anyway. So.
Yeah.
I suppose they would have got a joint office chartered flight over to wherever. Again, she was. Sounds awful for saying, but part of the furniture. And when you see what she got replaced with, certainly in the Dalton era films, or the Living Daylights anyway. Yeah, it was just such an obvious way of sort of going, no, she's going to be young and blonde, and making jokes about Barry Manilow. I mean, there's something covering that podcast. I mean, this film, everyone talks about the Bond franchise being rebooted after Die Another Day, but I mean, it got a massive, change from, in 2 years from this to the Living Daylights.
Oh, huge. Absolutely. It was a reinvention. I mean, I don't think it was as much of a reinvention as I think they originally intended, was it? The Living Daylights. But I mean, I don't really feel like I'm allowed to talk about the Living Daylights.
No, help yourself.
A podcast about A View to a Kill. But yeah, no, I love the Living Daylights. Yeah, I mean, there was a revamp, wasn't it? They were trying to essentially completely revamp it. And I think for Living Daylights, they were going to take it back to the 70s, were they not? They were going to have like a sort of flashback to early Bond, sort of pre-00 status and stuff. I don't know.
I heard stuff like that, and you kind of think, like, I suppose it's easy to think, imagine if Roger Moore had stayed on and done that film.
Yeah, well, I mean, it wasn't completely... When you see the interviews with Roger at the time, he wasn't absolutely ruling it out in the interviews. I think it took... There was a bit of a lag, wasn't there? There was maybe 4 or 5 months, maybe. Aficionados will know this better than I, but there was a period where it seemed like there was still a possibility that he might return. He hadn't completely ruled it out. But I think he probably finished at the right time.
I think so.
Yeah.
Now, at the racing, we meet Sir Godfrey Tibbett, horse racing trainer extraordinaire, who introduces, in a way, or sets up the meeting with Detective Achille Aubergine, who we shortly meet in Paris. Now, this scene... I've only been... I've been to Paris, I've seen the Eiffel Tower, I haven't been up it or in it or anything like that, but this... we cut from Ascot to the Eiffel Tower and this restaurant, which is real, like, I don't know if it's a mid-80s thing or whether it's still like that now. It's this gaudy black and gold thing, and there's no wimpy. And we meet Mr. Achille Aubergine, who is the most French person ever.
Well, totally, yeah. And there's a line in this sequence that I was hoping you could try and shed some light on for me and try and explain what he means. Because he says, he goes...
Perhaps we should add this butterfly to our collection? No?
So, something like that. And I'm like, what is he talking about here?
Are we saying that he was behind Silence of the Lambs?
He's looking at a sexy lady, and he's saying, perhaps we can add her to our collection. I've often pondered this line. I've wondered exactly what he means. I wonder what he means exactly. Roger, to be fair, shrugs it off.
Yeah, he does.
The character of Bond shrugs it off. He could have made something of that moment, but he doesn't. And you're just left hanging with this line.
He's got some sort of museum of former conquests and, I suppose, reluctant conquests as well.
But he's quite an old man, isn't he? He's quite an old man to be saying that about clearly quite a young lady.
Yeah.
And it's... I don't know.
I mean, he's probably, by his age and demeanour, he's probably a retired policeman. I suppose if he's gone into being a private detective or something. But, I mean, they're really, like, measuring cocks by talking about which champagne they're going to have. And Achille Aubergine isn't in this film for very long, and yet he seems to be one of those people that lived long in the memory of certain people. Now, I'll take a slight tangent and say that we asked for people's 10-word reviews of this film.
Oh, yeah.
On Twitter and Facebook. Now,
yes.
I know we'll come up with some later, but I just want to mention at this scene, Barnaby Sultan, who gave his 10-word review as, I, Achille Aubergine, think this is a classic film. Nailed it. And, of course, he met a sticky end because, and at this point we don't know, but it's Mayday in a very dark suit.
Yeah.
Barges the guy who's waving these butterflies around.
Yeah,
and with
nobody hears that.
No, and with some precision manages to get a butterfly with a stabbing implement right into the side of his face.
Right into the side of his face, yeah. And the obviously the poison in it affects the guy instantaneously.
Yeah.
There's no kind of like takes 30 seconds for the thing to kind of go into his bloodstream. Instantaneous death.
And James Bond, with all his real empathy with the characters.
There's a fly in his suit.
Yeah, he's just like, fuck him, his face is in the soup. I'm not even going to bother. I mean,
big-headed bastard talking about sex slaves.
He's done. What's he on about with these fucking... I mean, we're gonna add this butterfly to our collection. It's not my thing. Achille.
I don't collect these women. They're people. Honest.
And I don't want to kind of... I've got a few... we'll cover this later, right? This is one of these moments where the stunt doubles come into play. and it does form... I've actually kind of... I've got a top 10 of that's not Roger or not Roger moments. And this is one of the first... Well, no, actually, there's a few moments before that as well, but the moment when he runs out of the restaurant...
Yeah.
They use a stunt double for that.
It's hardly taxing, is it?
It's just, we need a stunt double. You can imagine the conversation, can't you, John Glenn? Is that, well, this sequence here, we've got Roger Bond's going to be running away from the table to the door. Right? How are we going to do this? Right. Well, obviously we'll need a stunt man because Roger's not going to be up to that, is he?
Roger's mid-cigar and just said, running? I mean, this part, it's, again, seems to be, well, to me, an iconic part of the film because, you know, it's the Eiffel Tower. Bond chases the masked assassin up the tower. She gets a couple of shots off. She throws a fucking fishing rod at him. And she jumps off. I suppose this would have been, and I did read about the process of actually making this stunt. Grace Jones got as far involved as she could. Even the initial jump she actually did, didn't she?
Yeah.
Or the jump
Yeah.
within the tower. But the fact that they filmed this, was it 6 o'clock in the morning, something like that? I mean, actually parachuting off the Eiffel Tower. Fucking hell. The balls to do that, to even think about it.
It's great. I mean, it's iconic as well because of the parachute, you know. Have you seen that in a film before? Somebody jumping off the Eiffel Tower with a parachute. I don't think it's... Has it been done before? View to a Kill? I don't know if it has.
No.
It's
I mean,
part of why the Bond films are so good because they take iconic places and do something that you would have never thought of doing.
Mission Impossible can kiss more. Yeah. I mean, they come up with these stunts, but they're not like this, are they?
No, absolutely not. I mean, literally, this whole sequence is mostly made up of stunt doubles. It cuts away a couple of times to Roger. Just going back to like the start when I was saying about how it was a formative Bond experience for me seeing this. I was a young man. Even now, I'm still able to suspend disbelief that it's actually Roger Moore doing all these stunts. There's a part of my brain that allows me to kind of just go, yeah, fuck it, yeah, that is Roger that's doing all this shit.
But I guess back then you wouldn't think too much about it.
No, you wouldn't think it, but I can allow myself to be that young boy watching it for the first time and just enjoy it for what it is. I mean, rather than going, look at that, it's bollocks. I mean,
ultimately we're talking about actors and these, and I know a couple of people who on Twitter, and they're stunt performers, but they're also actors as well. And you think really they are just playing the role of James Bond.
Yeah.
You know, so for that couple of seconds, or in the case of this film, half the bloody film, it's a stunt actor playing James Bond. They're just sharing the responsibility with Roger Moore.
Exactly, yeah.
I mean, I know it was I think it was one of the stills on your website, and then I noticed it when I watched the film again. I mean, the part where, because Mayday is parachuted off the Eiffel Tower, Bond has to get down quickly and jumps onto the lift as it descends. I mean, that's basically ripped out of Superman 2. The scene where Roger Moore leaves the Eiffel Tower, he doesn't even run that part either.
No, Chris. That is Roger. Quite clearly. If you pause it, I think you'll find that it's not Roger even doing.
Yeah.
But this is the thing though, the editing is so good that they make it work. They make it work because it's just about flashing images in front of you and your eyes, and then you just go, oh fuck it, yeah, no, that is Roger doing that.
Yeah.
Although nothing can do, like seconds later when he steals the car, there is no getting away from the fact that it's not Roger. It's clearly Ray Julien in the car. It's clearly him. He's not even dressed in a tuxedo.
And just the worst wig possible. It looks like he's got a cat on his head.
It's just ridiculous. It's clearly another man. But there's a part of my brain that still allows it to be okay.
And yet all we remember from this scene is...
Oh, my girl!
He's great. What a great little performance that guy does. It's fantastic. It's so. I love the way that when he rocks back onto that table, that both legs go up into the air. He's kind of like flailing around a wee bit.
And here we are portraying Parisian taxi drivers as wine-swilling morons.
They're not stereotyping him.
No. I'm surprised it wasn't the chap from the previous films doing the double takes.
Oh, goodness me. Yeah, they missed a trick not getting him in this sequence, really, didn't they?
He couldn't get a cab. We get the awesome car chase. This Renault is just absolutely destroyed, not by Roger. And by the time it makes it to the bridge where not Roger jumps off, it's essentially the front half of a Renault without a top. Just thinking about it, you think, sod the engineering, sod the physics.
Yeah.
We don't care, the car's made it.
It's for this very reason, the fact that you've got a sequence like this that's so entertaining, right? You don't give a shit that it wouldn't actually work in real life, do you? You don't care. You do not care. And I think Bond fans that take Bond too seriously, have you seen the films? You just think they're fucking ridiculous. This stuff couldn't happen in real life. I mean, the car is literally, it breaks in half perfectly, doesn't it?
Yeah.
Perfectly. In a moment which is just, the stunt double is so visible in this scene. It's ridiculous. I mean, you pause it and you just, who is that man? And to be honest, I still don't know the name of that stunt double.
We do get, I suppose this is showing Bond as maybe he's met his match. Bond jumps off the bridge into the boat. Mayday lands on the boat very gracefully and trots off. He falls through into a giant cake.
It's ridiculous. Yeah, it doesn't get any cake on him at all.
Mayday jumps off into a speedboat with Zorin, and Roger Moore's accosted by the ship's chefs who've got cleavers. It's amazed he walked away.
It's such a comedy moment, that, isn't it, when Bond falls through the ceiling and just crashes onto the cake. It just looks so fucking ungainly, doesn't it? Oh my goodness. I mean,
he's ruined that couple's magic day.
Absolutely, yeah, absolutely. And I bet he didn't even say sorry. But
I think he did say congratulations, didn't he?
He did, yeah. But it's at this point as well where we would have cut to the police station, the deleted police station scene, which is fantastic just because you get to hear Roger saying, "From Russia with love."
Oh, really?
Have you seen that?
I haven't seen it. I'm aware of it. I've never seen it.
Yeah, he gets the it's a lighter. He basically lights. It's basically kind of the lighter from License to Kill. Essentially, he lights the lighter, and then he looks at M and says, because M's busted him out of jail. He turns to M and says, "Oh, from Russia with love."
Morning, sir.
Your personal effects. One watch. Most unusual.
From Russia, with love.
One pen. And one lighter.
But it's well cheesy, very cheesy. And at the end of the sequence, he signs his name. The ink that he's used on his pen just kind of sets the paper on fire. It's kind of like it just disintegrates, and the police chief's there at the desk going, "What the fuck is happening?"
It wasn't J.W. Pepper, was it?
No, they did a trick there. He should have been there, just like on a transfer or something, you know. Just shoehorned him in, but no.
On another holiday. Did you want to do Not Roger now?
We can do. I'm not going to do them in any particular order, Rich. I'm just going to list them off.
Rattle through them.
Because they have a favourite. I mean, I'll do them in chronological order, right?
Everyone has their own favourite. That's the main thing.
Here we go. Right. My top 10 favourite not Roger moments are when Bond hooks the rope on the ski-mobile rider's back in the pre-title sequence. Clearly not Roger. The exact moment when the California Girls track comes in at the start of the snowboarding gag pre-title sequence. When Bond runs out the restaurant door at the Eiffel Tower after saying there's a fly in his soup. And it's coupled with a run towards the taxi at the bottom of the base of the tower. We've gone over that. Number 6, the moment when Mayday throws her fishing rod at Bond and Roger's ADR goes, "Whoa!" and his stunt double hangs over the edge for a few seconds. Number 5, the "whoa, my car" moment when Bond steals the cab at the Eiffel Tower and it's clearly Remy Julien doing the driving. A man who's not even wearing a tuxedo, we'll say that. The moment where the roof is ripped off the car and we see Remy Julien hilariously in a bad wig, pops his head up. We've got the moment when the car is ripped in two and we get a close up of a man who is clearly not Roger. We've got Bond swinging onto the drawbridge at Zorin's chateau in Chantilly, clearly not Roger. Bond doing a dive forward roll, shotgun in hand, on Stacey's landing in her house during the fight. Clearly not a 56-year-old Roger Moore. And also we've got Bond bouncing around while riding the side of the fire truck in San Francisco. They're a favourite of mine.
All magic moments.
Magic moments. Magic. Movie magic.
Yet we still love it. Who cares?
I don't give a shit. I'm able to... In my mind, that's Roger.
The thing, are we going to look back when Tom Cruise dies and think, yeah, but he did his own stunts? No. We'll go back and think, Roger Moore, great bloke. Tom Cruise, nutter. I mean, we're at a stage where the James Bond franchise, they've gone from trying to imitate Jason Bourne to trying so hard to replicate Mission Impossible that Daniel Craig has even broken his ankle while filming this one, just like Tom Cruise did.
I know. Yeah, he's out of the game. Well, he's an old man, isn't he? 51.
Yeah, I'm not going to say too much. Now, as you mentioned, we cut to Zorin's farm. Now, my favourite part, possibly one of my favourite parts of the film, and something that I always makes me laugh. James Bond's cover is James St. John Smythe, and Sir Godfrey is acting as his valet. And they turn up for an auction at Zorin's stud farm, and the two of them are bickering like an old married couple. And just that interaction between those two throughout their scenes together, just, I don't know, maybe the older I get, the more I even appreciate it more, but it's just so good.
That's the thing. I mean, I've heard fans complain about the horse section of the film, but it works a treat for me because the partnership, the chemistry absolutely works. I mean, they're good friends in real life, but you can see that chemistry working. It had an effect on the performances, so it's a joy to watch, isn't it?
I mean, even the opening part of that scene where they're met at the start by Jenny Flex, and Roger Moore says, "Of course you are."
Jenny Flex, yeah.
For fans of previous episodes, Alison Doody, who pops up in, she's the lady in Indiana Jones and the Last Crusade, but also Taffin.
Taffin, yeah.
Yeah, she's the lady who gets the infamous ire of Pierce Brosnan.
What goes on in this town is none of your business.
As long as I'm living here, it is.
Then maybe you shouldn't be living here!
Taffin. Oh, I love that Taffin got mentioned on this podcast. Mark O'Connell, the writer, O'Connell, wrote a little bit about his granddad, Jimmy, who worked in the role of chauffeur for Cubby Broccoli.
Oh, really?
And kind of Mark's written about it a little bit in his book, Catching Bullets. But Jimmy was basically, he sort of was trusted to look after sort of Cubby's kids, and he served him pretty much throughout his whole career. And the Godfrey Tibbett character was modelled off Jimmy, basically.
Oh, wow.
So, and in the film, Tibbett obviously drives the Rolls Royce, which is what Jimmy actually drove in real life, or Cubby.
Because that was Cubby's Rolls, wasn't it?
Yeah, it's his car. But that was based on a real life person, Jimmy O'Connell. I think it's fantastic. There's a little bit Mark O'Connell mentions in his book, and he was saying that Jimmy was never allowed to retire. Cubby never let him retire because Cubby said he wouldn't let him because he said if I can make the films, the least you can do is drive the car. I think it's fantastic, which is great. And it's also a very similar outfit that Jimmy used to wear. There's the one that McNee wears in the film, and also down to the detail as well. I briefly had a Twitter conversation with Mark a couple of weeks ago, and he mentioned that even the part where Tibbett talked about getting the car cleaned, which is a kind of a plot point in the film, actually relates to real life Jimmy, who had a real life obsession with keeping that car clean. It all ties into real life situations, which I think is very cool.
We haven't mentioned, this film is an original screenplay. The book or the short story that the title came from, has nothing to do with this film at all. It was, it even had a slightly different title, wasn't it? It was From a View to a Kill.
Yeah.
Other than that's the title, and it was set in Paris. That's about it. And yet to think that whoever has got down and written this screenplay and put the story together and all these little parts about character development have gone into that much detail. And the fact that even if it is based on a real person, to like or have the affection for that person enough to include basically them in your film.
Oh, it's great.
Lovely touch.
And there's actually another bit that I failed to mention actually, is that Jimmy O'Connell was actually a huge horse racing fan as well. So him and Cubby were both horse racing fans.
Awesome.
So that was kind of brought into the story. But also Patrick McNee as well, his own story as well, which is fucking brilliant the way that ties in as well, because his father was a horse trainer, wasn't he?
Oh, really? Okay.
Yeah, he trained horses. And so Patrick actually has a lot of knowledge about training horses, and that's his character in the film as well.
Yeah, it's a very interesting approach to method acting.
It's just great, yeah, and it's this it's the mark of Cubby, I think, as well. He kind of brought those elements into the script and made it work, and I think it really that the character of Tibbet is such a memorable character for me. And it's fucking hilarious as well what McNee does with it as well, because he seems so pissed off. And I mean, when they arrive and they meet Jenny Flex, he just seems so put out by the fact that Bond's playing character. And you just think, why should he be? He's playing a character, but he just acts so pissed off. Even to the point that later on, where after he does the fantastic murders, they let me help you with that, and he pulls the brolly. They go out of the room and they're doing the recording bit, and when they go out the balcony, he's like, do we have to keep this shit up while we're kind of alone? I mean, it's like he's actually pissed off about it. Fuck's sake, man. You're a spy. I mean,
I've been lugging your matching Louis Vuitton luggage up the stairs.
That's the role. That's the part, isn't it? But it's just, this is the thing. This is why I don't get the criticism of the horse sequence in View to a Kill. It's because it's basically Moore and McNee.
Yeah.
In sparkling form. So I'm thinking, what is there to not like about that?
It's nice that, you know, a large part of the bits, even The Man with the Golden Gun, you know, and a lot of people don't, you know, it's not many people's favourite Roger Moore film. But, you know, when Roger Moore has a contemporary to bounce off, whether it's a villain or, in this case, you know, a friend, you know, they get on so well and it makes the scene more dynamic and it's more personal. But yeah, this part, I mean, I loved it when I was a kid. I thought it was hilarious.
It's still good, and it gets better as well as you get older, and you can appreciate what skills are in play by these two kind of seasoned actors. Roger Moore is not given enough credit for what his skill set is. You know, he's a master of light comedy, and McNee, what a double act, fantastic. And
even the part when, you know, they're on the balcony and Stacey Sutton arrives by helicopter, and Bond immediately kind of, fancy some of that. And when Tibbet says, you know, kind of pushes on him, he said, well, you know, I have to sacrifice myself on these missions. When I'm on a mission, Sir Godfrey, I'm prepared to sacrifice myself. It's fantastic. And this is the second inclusion of the sexy sax by John Barry as well. So just so that you know that the lady in question is, she's a bit of a, she might play into the role, into the film at some point here. Sooner or later. Sexy sax, you can't beat it. It'll be cunningly inserted. Cunningly inserted. Yes. So at this party, or the reception after the horse auction, this is where we meet, I've written his name down as Dr. Nazi. Dr. Nazi, yeah. The true villain of the film, I think. Yeah, I suppose he's the author of what he hopes to be a master race. In my mind, and I've been thinking about this recently, but I actually think that Carl Mortner is the true villain of A View to a Kill. The story actually starts with him, in a way, when you think about it. Back in the Second World War, doing his experiments on the women in the concentration camps. I mean, this would be ripe for a prequel, if that was the sort of avenue they ever wanted to go down. I know it wouldn't really be much involvement with James Bond, but the explorations around the origins of Zorin. Yeah, that's the story in itself, isn't it? Now, Bond is busy, you know, trying to spy while telling everyone his name's St. John Smythe, you know, really subtle. He's got a Ring doorbell on his finger, taking photographs of everyone. I mean, this part is it just looks like everyone on set was enjoying themselves immensely. Yeah, and it wasn't inconspicuous that Bond basically stands in front of a window with a big pair of glasses. I mean, they're even bigger than the ones from the opening sequence with dials on them. Roger looks good in this sequence, I think. That jacket is beautiful. I'm trying to remember now, we're talking about subtle stuff. Which Bond film was it where he had the camera with 007 on it? Moonraker. Oh, of course, yeah. And this is, again, you know, the sort of, it's almost branding, isn't it? I'm surprised they don't have 007 on the glasses. They really should have done, shouldn't they? I mean, he may as well have done. He's standing at the window for a good 30 seconds, you know, looking in. And then eventually he gets kind of interrupted, doesn't he, by Scarpine. Yeah. He says, are you enjoying the party, Mr. St. John Smythe? And it's just a lot of people's sort of attempts at saying posh English name in a French accent. I love hearing Roger Moore saying St. John Smythe. St. John Smythe. He says it so well. I wonder if that seems almost like an ad-lib sort of thing. He came up with it just thinking, this will sound good when I say it. St. John Smythe. I mean, this was been after Cannonball Run, so I guess maybe that was the sort of thing that he was playing up on then.
Yeah, definitely, yeah. I mean, I mean, Roger was having fun with it, though. I mean, clearly.
Yeah. Bond meets Zorin for the first time, and just the two of them, what a pairing. And again, pure Walken when they're talking about horses, and Walken can't say a sentence without pausing in the middle because he's happiest in the saddle.
In the saddle.
I'm happiest in the saddle.
And I think actually this is probably one of the moments where Connolly, do you know his friend? He's a Texan. Is he from Texas?
Yeah.
Connolly. I think basically Connolly's like at the party saying to Zorin, he's asking about Main Strike in front of everybody. So basically kind of shuts him down quite quietly.
Yeah.
I just think that's the reason why at the end he just kind of does away with Connolly. So, I mean, he doesn't give a shit.
Doesn't tolerate this sort of
gobshite. Gobshite.
Zorin gets a bit prickled when Bond sort of teases him about doping the horses, and he sort of says, I'm neglecting my other guests, and implies that all the women at the party are prostitutes. Bond decides to think, right, I need more of a challenge. So he sees Stacey on her own looking very sad. I know we've seen Zorin write her a cheque for $5 million, but we're not exactly sure her role here. Bear in mind, you see James Bond. Now, was this the 14th Bond film at this point, I think?
Yeah.
Bond doesn't often get turned down so blatantly by a lady, but he's striking out big time here. And when Mayday comes over to cockblock him, she's kind of almost putting him out of his misery, really.
And what is that accent all about as well? By Grace Jones. It's such a weird interpretation. The helicopter, she says.
Yeah, because at the beginning, M said that she's American, and yet her accent, and it comes out again a little bit later on. Some of the things that she says, it just sounds odd. Bond strikes out horrifically here. Oh,
it's pretty. Yeah, you know, I mean, he does his best. He's wearing his best ivory jacket. He's looking pretty good, but she's got other things on her mind.
$5 million, and to be honest, I mean, I'm sure if I tried hitting on a Playboy centerfold, I would probably have a similar result.
I kind of need to briefly mention, I don't know if you've seen the behind the scenes stills of Roger.
I have.
For this particular moment when he meets Stacey, I've been wearing the Fila tracksuit.
Oh, divine.
Clearly Fila, because I mean, like in the next sequence is Roger wearing his, according to Oliver Brown, it's now iconic tracksuit. They obviously gave him some extra ones just because they were sponsoring the film.
Yeah.
There's quite a few behind the scenes stills of Roger wearing a Fila tracksuit top, and there's a fucking brilliant picture of him just wearing the Fila tracksuit over the top of his kind of beautiful shirt.
He looks like he's going to go and one of the old football hooligans.
It looks so wrong. But it's just, you can imagine that he was probably doing that all the time. I mean, just slipping on his Fila tracksuit all the time. Just like
I've got to get me proper clubber on before I get the football special. Now, I'd written down this part about the jacket, the next scene, because this is when Tibbett and Bond go off looking for in the stalls, looking for clues around Pegasus. Again, I know Matt and Pete mentioned it on their podcast about the All Bar Brown more merchandise we're talking about here. We're not on any, unfortunately, we're not on any commission. But I mean, this jacket. That jacket, I remember seeing it when I was a kid. Now, I didn't know up until relatively recently that it was Fila, but I mean, when All Bar Brown brought out their range of Bond-inspired clothing at extortionate prices, I was surprised because in All Bar Brown it's mostly like beach swimwear, sort of summery stuff. I wasn't expecting this jacket to feature.
Absolutely not, no.
And when I saw it, now I thought, I do actually have a pair of All Bar Brown swim shorts which I got to sale, but I had no intention of buying anything in that collection because I saw they had, was it Moonraker shorts for £300 or something stupid like that?
Yeah.
And then this jacket popped up.
Yeah. It's tempting, isn't it? I think they changed the fabric, didn't they? I think in the original one was velour, wasn't it?
Yeah.
But the All Bar Brown one is a kind of like a toweling fabric. But it just looks so good. I mean, it looks so... I could wear that. I could definitely wear that. But I mean, I don't know if you've been the same as me, but the finger has been hovering over on the purchase button, I think I would be killed in my sleep by my wife.
Yeah. I mean, I think it was £285. And I know we dropped some not very subtle hints on social media if Allbar Brown wanted to sponsor us for this podcast. And the most we got was Allbar Brown have liked this tweet.
Nice. Yeah. At least nice. But yeah, I'm a bit disappointed that they didn't send one through the post. I'm always very jealous when Matt Spacer mentions the free things that he gets. But yeah, what can you do?
I mean, if you're going to break into a stalls in a chateau in Chantilly and then be magically transported to, was it the Renault factory in Swindon?
Yeah.
Where the warehouse scene took place. That jacket is magical.
It's great. It's fantastic. And actually, I didn't realise it was a dark blue colour. I always thought it was black. It was only when it was described as being like a sort of a dark blue. A midnight blue, I should say.
Yeah.
I mean, if I was to do Matt Spacer any justice here. Another bit of information which I've gleaned from Matt's site is that the tracksuit was sold at Christie's 2001 for £470, which is a bargain. The original one. What would you do? You're going to buy the Oliver Brown one, or you could buy, but that was 2001 though.
Yeah, I mean,
I think it would probably go up a bit now.
That's about the price I paid for my first car.
But what would you rather have though?
The jacket. I'll get a bus in the jacket, it's fine. Now, one thing I did notice, because we're recording this at the end of May 2019. Now, ITV have been doing their usual showing the Bond films on a sort of Sunday afternoon, and they showed A View to a Kill a couple of weeks ago. And Joe Scaramanga on Twitter pointed out that we could also play a game of Not Patrick McNee.
Oh, yeah.
The part where he's knocked out during the fight between the two goons in the warehouse. And there's a scene after he's been punched and he's sort of lying in a battered crate. It's very clearly not him.
What?
Again, he's obviously too busy to just sit there on the floor and look a bit dozed.
I mean, you're saying these things, Rich, but it's not my ability to disbelieve. I still believe every second of it.
Let us change that to someone else stood in and filled the role of Tibbet for a short period of time. So they have a bit of a lucky escape, and Bond has to get back to his hotel room because he's got his tape of him snoring. And this is the part you mentioned earlier with the run and the sprint around the chateau.
Yeah.
Brilliant, wasn't it?
But even just the notion that at some point before the mission started, they would have had to record all that dialogue. I mean, of them just bickering. They would have had to go on for some time to make it convincing, wouldn't they?
You can't just have it on a loop.
Well, you couldn't just do it for 20 minutes. They're not going to go out spying just for 20 minutes.
Yeah.
They're going to go out for at least 45 minutes, I would say. 45 minutes to an hour, maybe, of spying. So that's basically like a full hour's... And you'd want to run over a bit, wouldn't you? So you'd have about an hour and a half's worth of banter, essentially.
If it's anything like this podcast, you end up clipping out. So, no, what you go ahead.
I'll just do that bit again. I can do that put down a bit better next time. Wait a minute, let me do it again.
Let me redo that joke. Mayday and Zorin are doing some fight training, and it all gets a little bit heated.
It does. And I don't know if you visited the pages of IMDb before you did this podcast.
Yes.
There's a moment, and it made me fucking howl with laughter when I read this little bit. And it says it's the second Bond movie after The Man with the Golden Gun to include a scene where female pubic hair is visible. Right? Now, that's the sort of fact that I want to know. But, and and I'm reading this verbatim for what it says on the slide as well. It says, granted, it's very brief and one would have to freeze the movie at the precise moment, but it's clearly seen sticking out from Mayday's work attire. Now,
and we think we have too much time on our hands.
I've got the Blu-ray of this film, and I did attempt to freeze frame it, but I could not. For the life of me, I couldn't do it.
I didn't get to see it.
But not only the fact that somebody has found one frame, maybe two frames, maybe where there's a pube showing, but it's not only the first time it's happened in a Bond film. It's like a needle in a haystack, isn't it? What am I going to be? I'm going to be reduced to scrolling through The Man with the Golden Gun on Blu-ray, trying to find a pubic hair, and I don't know whose pubic hair I'm looking for.
If that's what you're looking for, I could send you some websites.
I'm not particularly, but I'm a completist, and I feel like I need to know these sort of things. If somebody's listening to this and they can tell me where this pubic hair is to save me the bother, go for it. Thunderbolts 007. Go for it.
Yeah, it'll be on your website in seconds.
I've got a feeling it might be the Chew Me section. Chew Me, remember?
Yes. So there's a little bit of attempted hate sex between Zorin and Mayday. Now, it's not often you see the sort of villain and henchman ending up like that.
Yeah, it's a funny one, isn't it?
It's not something you saw in Moonraker or anything like that, is it?
It's odd. They're supposed to be boyfriend and girlfriend, right?
Yeah.
Yeah, but she looks like she's kind of enjoying it, but then there's that moment. There's a moment where he sort of starts to lean in for the kiss, and she starts like acting like a rabid dog.
Yeah, so trying to bite him.
And it's just such a weird character moment, but it's brilliant. It's one of the things that makes View to a Kill so special, because it's just so entertaining.
One thing that does make A View to a Kill special, and it's something we can find out later, Bond makes it back to the chateau, but he doesn't land in his bedroom.
No.
He lands in Mayday's bedroom.
He'd have to, wouldn't he? Well, because he'd already made that promise at the party, didn't he? He said, "Oh, you're going to take care of me personally." This
scene where, of course, because Bond and Mayday are in bed together, I won't go into it too much. I mean, it's probably one of the first times that a woman has dominated Bond in bed anyway.
And she absolutely does.
Yeah.
She is in charge.
And she makes it clear. And now, something that came out a little while ago, it got mentioned in one of Roger Moore's books, I think, but it got elaborated on by Grace Jones in an interview of Alan Carr. Now, you were quite keen to tell the story.
Well, I think it should be mentioned because, Grace Jones, I mean, I think we should probably just hear the audio from it.
And do you remember that sex scene with Roger Moore when he went, Mayday? And then you climbed in bed and then you tossed him over like that and you thought,
very good.
Yeah.
You do.
Was that like Roger Moore in front of you then?
Yeah.
Look at him there.
He has the most amazing sense of humour, Roger.
But didn't you play a trick on him in the bed?
It's supposed to be a secret.
Oh, well, tell us your
We're chatting secrets tonight. Okay, Roger likes to hide these little things, and Goose, when you're doing the scene with him, he'll pull out some kind of thing and, goose you with it. Do you use that word here?
Yeah, goose. We go, woo, like that.
Yeah, like, wow!
Yeah, wow! Yeah, just like that.
So they said, we're not sure, but we think he's definitely got something up his sleeves for you. And I thought, me first. So I said, okay, girls, let's tippy-toe on down. Tiptoe down to the prop room. And we went through all the rumble and everything. And then finally I went, whew, I think that's it. Yeah. It was a black and white polka dot dildo.
What did you do with this black and white dildo?
I had this robe, that I have to undo the tie and drop it off in the scene. So I said, I'm going to strap it on. And when I'm supposed to walk in when he goes to Mayday, I see you're here to take care of me personally.
Oh,
no! Do you think she could have said to the prop department, "Can I borrow this?" Or do you think she took it?
Run it under the tap before you bring it back.
And do you think it was a prop that was supposed to be in the prop department, or do you think somebody just left it there by accident?
And they come back later going, "Where was that thing I left?"
Someone's come back after lunch. Someone's took that dildo. And then they hear about the story after lunch, what Grace did to Roger on set, and they're fucking mortified.
Yeah, I'll best buy a new one.
But there's a moment of Roger right at the end of that scene with Grace when she basically kind of throws him over and Roger's eyes roll back in their head. It's fantastic.
Something literally tickled him.
But it's like even in that brief moment, Roger still manages to raise an eyebrow. I mean, it's like that's the news of Roger. He's like, how can I fit an eyebrow raise into this scene? I'll do it. Don't you worry, John. I'll figure it out. I mean,
now the next morning, Bond presents himself to Zorin's office as requested. Zorin asks, "How do you sleep?" And he said, "I got off eventually." I was like to think, well, surely Mayday's needs come before his. But
I mean, he knows fine it's his girlfriend as well, doesn't he? I mean, yeah. Bond knows it's his girlfriend, so he's really kind of laying on thick here, isn't he?
He loves it. Now Zorin uses the computer to sort of do some checks on Bond using the camera. Zorin, for all his apparent super knowledge and all this stuff about computers, only ever presses one button a lot, over and over again.
Yeah, it's good. He actually almost blows the cover, actually, because there's a bit where he says, "Oh, it's the horse, Pegasus, descended from that horse up there." And then Bond gets about the seat, and he almost fucking sees the camera behind the mirror, doesn't he? Yeah. Like, he stood. If you went forward any more, he'd be like, "Oh, you've got a camera there."
I mean, one thing I should have mentioned, I think if I'd had more time, I'd have had a proper look. I think A View to a Kill was the first Bond film that had a computer game tie-in.
That's right.
Because I know there had been plans to do one for Octopussy, and it never materialised. But this is one that actually, I've got one of those gadgets that have the emulators on, where it has all the old sort of Commodore 64 Spectrum games. A View to a Kill's actually on it. I should really have dug into it and played that, but
it's got like a bit of digitized speech, hasn't it?
Yes, I remember that I saw some on YouTube.
It's fantastic, yeah.
Good graphics.
Oh yeah. It's when graphics were really exciting when you're at that age. You thought they were great. I mean, the loading screen was great back in those days, didn't you? The loading screen, you thought, "Oh, this looks great."
And every film had a computer game. Even Death Wish 3 had a computer game. So we've got the horse race. Bond has been queued up on Inferno and told that if he stays the course, he can keep the Ithacus cult. So basically the sort of sibling of Pegasus. This horse race, needless to say, doesn't go particularly well. While he's off racing, and there's all these trick jumps that only Bond manages to make it past. Takes out every one of Zorin's goons. Tibbet has taken the roles for an unnecessary car wash and meets a sticky ending there at the hands of Mayday.
Yeah. I mean, it's a bit of a sad ending for Tibbet in a gas station with Mayday doing her signature move, which is the behind the strangulation.
Auto asphyxiation in a BP. Probably not the first. So Bond eventually makes it out onto the main road after Zorin's triggered the steroid in this horse, gets alongside the rolls, and this is after a part where there's a chase through a forest, which seems to be, I think it's the third time in 4 Bond films we've had a somewhat dark chase through a forest after Moonraker and Octopussy, which I thought was a bit strange, sort of doing that again. But it gets into the rolls, and Mayday's driving it, Tibbet's dead in the back seat. A nice bit of repartee with Bond and Zorin here.
Yeah, it's good, and you get the good line where he says,
"Killing Tibbet was a mistake."
Oh yeah, killing Tibbet was a mistake. Yeah, it's a mistake I'm about to make twice.
They knock Roger out, shove him into the car, and push that inside into a lake. Now, apparently, this wasn't Cubby Broccoli's roles. They pushed in. Roger survives, or Bond survives, by getting out and inhaling the air from the tyres, which I'm not 100% sure would work. But it saved Bond's life, so yes, it does.
I mean, it works, and it's absolutely believable. And the fact that you've got Roger in a tank, it looks great. It looks fantastic. Where does Tibbet's body go? When the car goes in the water, suddenly there's no body of Tibbet in the car. It just disappears.
Unless it naturally floated back into the driver's seat. Bond escapes from the car. We cut back to the racing track, and we see Gogol again, making one of his regular appearances, and the first on-screen appearance of one of the Betamax Video Club veteran members, Dolph Lundgren.
Yeah, a very brief appearance. I also read that he was part of the choreography team that did the Zorin Mayday fight as well.
Okay, I didn't realise that. Yeah.
That's down to him, apparently. He was a
I suppose
consultant.
yeah, I mean, he was dating Grace Jones at the time, wasn't he?
That's right, yeah.
I think this is the third film he's been in. Oh, what a legend of the podcast he is.
Oh, Dolph Lundgren, yeah. But also, first on-screen role for Dolph Lundgren, but also the first film for Alison Doody as well, as Jenny Flex. And also, she was the youngest credited Bond girl as well.
Oh God, how old was she?
I think she was 18.
Oh, thank God.
Good morning, Comrade Zorin. General Gogol.
We find out that Zorin is a KGB agent, or at least affiliated to, and we see some freakish strength from Mayday. Now, there's no implication that she's genetically engineered, is there?
Well, I think I was going to talk about this because on the Blu-ray version of the film, there is a commentary track, and producer Michael G. Wilson kind of mentions that Mayday herself was an experiment of Dr. Morton as well. He hints that she was as well.
Okay.
Hence the freakish strength just to lift a man who's clearly bigger than her right above her head. But they don't really make a thing of it, but it's definitely on the extras.
That would make a lot of sense.
Yeah, it would make sense. The KGB guy who gets picked up didn't notice that a lady was creeping up behind him about to pick him up. Because you know what it's like. I mean, try and think about how difficult it is to pick someone up, the practicality of that. But he's so surprised about it.
Yeah, he just looked like he'd sort of tripped over and all of a sudden, above sort of a woman's head.
He does come to a sticky end later in the film, that particular agent, doesn't he?
Now, the next scene is one that a lot of people sort of, reminisce fondly about, the airship.
Oh.
Now, this is where Zorin unveils his grand scheme to everyone, forming an international cartel to control the microchip industry. And even parts of this, I mean, that again, I know this was joked about in one of the Austin Powers films, but he has on his airship a table which has a display of Silicon Valley and then what happens when it's flooded and all this. Now, someone has obviously gone to the hassle of making this. And I suppose whoever's come up with this has gone to, given them the brief of saying, right, I need you to make a display. What happens if we set off an earthquake, flood Silicon Valley, and just put these dots where all the Zorin oil wells are, just to... I hope he was the sort of person they killed afterwards. Loose lips.
Oh, it's a great sequence, isn't it? I mean, the fact that you don't hear the engines of the said airship while the table doing, and it's just a good moment, isn't it? It's a great...
Yeah. And even as the display rises from the table, it rises with his arms.
He's raising his arms. And this is Walken enjoying himself, isn't he? He's just he's reveling in the moment of being a Bond villain. And he's doing what he should have been doing, exactly.
The plan to these unnamed business people is pay him $100 million and 50% of their income. Now, I suppose, again, back in the mid-'80s, another Austin Powers thing, $100 million was probably a lot of money. And I guess now it's like going up to the guy who owns Amazon saying, give us $100 million. Go, all right, I've got that in my wallet. But then this is what causes the guy. I didn't write his name down. The guy who sort of dissents. Yeah. It's not the fact that he's going to kill thousands of people.
It's the money. Yeah.
It's the money.
It's the money. Yeah. Yeah. Because that's all that matters. Well, that's the 80s, though, isn't it? It's all money. It's all about the accumulation of money.
Greed is good.
And he doesn't want to lose all that money that he's conned people out of all those years.
Of course, he meets a spectacularly sticky end himself. Well, it's not really sticky, it's just very wet.
Yeah, just wet. And he probably survives, to be honest. Do you know what I mean? It doesn't look like it was particularly life-threatening, that fall, does it?
Yeah. I mean, it's quite clever, Mayday will provide you with a drink.
Oh, that's fantastic. Great.
Lets him out the little trapdoor of the airship. This is the trapdoor that is Zorin branded, of course.
Zorin, the actual door itself is branded, yeah. And then the outside of the airship as well, also
heavily branded.
Mayday, we provide you with a drink.
This way.
And of course, we mustn't forget Zorin's quote when we cut back after this guy's after this guy's fallen out of the airship, saying, "Does anyone else want to drop out?"
Oh, brilliant.
And then this is the part that I do scoff at this part a little bit when Mayday and Zorin go into the cabin of the airship, look out as they're approaching San Francisco, and it's what a view to a kill.
To a kill, yes. Shoehorn it in, but it's done so deliciously well, so why not?
How else can we get the title of the film in? It's got to be done somewhere.
Actually, at one point I did attempt to. I thought maybe I'll try and edit together all the times where the title of the film is said and just edit them together, but it didn't quite work. I got so far and I was like, oh no, they didn't say it in that one, did they?
I actually did that as part of the I did a video trailer for the Bond podcast I was doing and cut. I think there's a YouTube video where they do it, and I think they've put every scene or a scene from every Bond film where they mention the title.
Yeah,
I can't imagine. Yeah, they didn't get to Quantum of Solace anyway.
Yeah, no, they wouldn't put that in, would they?
What a view.
To a kill.
Whoever she was must have scared the living daylights out of her.
Effective immediately. Your license to kill is revoked.
Now, we're in San Francisco. Bond meets with CIA agent who isn't Felix Leiter. This is where the explanation around the Nazi part, where we sort of put two and two together and assume that Zorin is a Nazi baby.
Well, yet again, I'm going to assert here that the main villain of the piece really is Hans Glaub. He's the story really starts with him. He's the one that created Zorin. Who knows how much of the actual plan might have been Glaub's, you know what I mean?
It's just a shame he jumped to the end.
He is a Nazi after all. He's trying to kind of commit evil deeds.
But wouldn't put it past him.
But I like to think that you can sort of view the film like he is the main villain, and he even survives till the end as well. After Zorin's death, he's still there.
This could be the plot of an Indiana Jones sequel, couldn't it? I mean, this part of the film is where I kind of gloss over a little bit when I think about my nostalgia of it, when it starts talking about oil pumping and seawater into fresh water and all that. It kind of... I wasn't the best science student at school anyway, and it just seems a little bit like almost like a rehashed plot of Superman, where it's about, trying to increase the value of your real estate by setting off an earthquake.
Yeah, I mean, it could work, I guess. There's some science behind it that could work. Enough for a James Bond film, anyway, for sure.
Yeah.
But yeah, I mean, I think all the kind of the bit where he meets Chuck Lee, the backstory about Glaub and that little bit of backstory is fantastic. I mean, it's a good little bit of backstory. Sets up the whole idea of Zorin in that one little scene.
And bear in mind, we're sort of halfway through the film before it's got to this.
Exactly, yeah.
It's almost like a semi-big reveal. We've already had Zorin, the sort of megalomaniac nutcase, but now he's also a bit Nazi.
Yeah, I mean, it's basically James Bond versus the Nazis, essentially. Essentially, that's the plot. It's like a Nazi goon in one last attempt to try and take down the West.
Yeah, it's like the plot of Captain America.
It's ridiculous, yeah. Before we continue here, though, Rich, I mean, again, another nod to Matt Spacer and his fantastic website, but he mentions about the grey suede blouson jacket that Roger wears in the San Francisco scene. And apparently that jacket was, I say apparently, Matt knows for sure, and I believe every word he says. It was made by a company called Leather Concessionaires, and they made the jacket for Indiana Jones in Raiders of the Ark. There's a bit of a tie-in there.
I'm not going to lie. I'm not a huge fashion person, but I think I'd rather have Indiana Jones's jacket.
I think so.
I mean, Roger Moore was rocking a lot of grey and beige in this, but no Indy.
And to a certain degree, that jacket just kind of hide the paunch a little bit as well, doesn't it? And not fair on Roger.
We're only looking at the jacket.
I mean, this is another thing I meant to say at the start of the podcast, is that I've got absolute love for Roger Moore. I mean, and yeah, if anybody takes any disrespect from anything I'm saying, please do not. because I love Roger Moore, but he was hiding a bit of a paunch, you know.
Yeah,
he was 56. You know what I mean?
Yeah, I mean, I'm not quite there yet, but I mean, if I had a jacket that hid mine, that'd be nice.
He does well. He does well.
Yeah, I mean, living that life, I would as well.
Exactly. Yeah.
We're in San Francisco. We've already talked about pumping. Now, this is the part of the pumping station where Zorin really sort of getting his hands dirty, I suppose. He's at the testing site where they're testing these pressure pumps. Bond gets caught in one of the tubes, and luckily for him, while they're looking for the person who's clogged it, the KGB are also there. And this is where the goon from earlier, who Mayday lifts above her head, this is where he gets sort of yoinked up.
It's a brutal moment, isn't it?
Yeah, because he's put a mine by the pumping station to destroy it, but Mayday grabs him and drags him up, and Zorin makes him defuse the bomb and then chucks him in.
It's a moment, isn't it? It looks, I mean, it's done so well actually. That shot and all the kind of the red water, the blood, and then just that shot of the dial kind of struggling to chop up her body. Clearly, it's good. It's all suggested, and it's brutal.
Because I suppose you can get away with stuff like that if there's blood in the water. Anything after Jaws is probably fine, but these pumps clearly only took a couple of seconds to get rid of the body, and then it's like, and back to normal.
It's also the moment in the film, Rich, where we see the Sony Sports Walkman as well.
Oh, classic yellow.
Yeah.
Loved it.
Love that Walkman. Although I'm not sure if they actually had. It looks like they didn't have official permission from Sony to show the Sony logo, because it's they've got that red sticky tape covering the logo.
You mean Sony didn't pay for a promotional consideration?
It doesn't seem like it was an official tie-in, yeah. I wrote down the model of the Walkman itself. If you do fancy getting one, it's a Sony Sports WMF5. There you go. And they couldn't actually record as well. So there you go. So don't buy one thinking that you'll be able to secretly record people, because it couldn't actually record. So
it's funny, like in the current day when all films leave no stone unturned looking for any way to eke an extra few quid. Bond now drinks Heineken, and everything he wears is either that it's quite made clear either through the Instagram account, what's Daniel wearing.
Yeah.
Within a day it's like he's got this brand of boat shoes on, or everything's sponsored. And I'm no mug. I've got an Amiga watch. That's another couple of days of childcare. It was all a little bit weird. And I suppose back then when sponsorship was still, I suppose, in early stages, you'd think that all parties would be quite happy to have Sony blazoned over everything.
Yeah, well, especially because later on, Sony became such a big sponsor of the Bond films, didn't it?
Yeah.
So especially in the Daniel Craig era, it pops up all the time, doesn't it? He's got his Sony phone, his laptop,
everything. Now, this is a part I always remember, and I guess maybe it's something that I've grown to appreciate even more with age. Bond washes up with another KGB agent, Fiona Fullerton, who was, I think, a staple of sort of TV panel shows back in the late 80s as Bond girl. Pola Ivanova.
Pola Ivanova, yeah.
What a name.
Good name.
They go off to the Nippon Relaxation Spa.
That's right.
Filmed in...
She has a great line in this sequence, doesn't she?
The bubbles tickle my Tchaikovsky.
And he's massaging her and is like, would you like it harder, and so on. But there's obviously a backstory there as well that they make some reference to.
Yeah, it's a good scene. It's humorous, especially considering that as they kind of leave, they've left Zorin's pumping station, and there's a car that's following them. You go, no, who's this following them? Someone's following them. And it turns out that the man following them is General Gogol.
Yeah, well, actually, at one point, when she gets into the car, it's not him.
It's clearly not him.
Someone totally different.
Absolutely not him. But the fact that it's actually General Gogol himself.
The head of the KGB.
Yeah, doing this actual mission. You think they could have sent someone else, wouldn't you? Just to do this in the donkey work of just collecting somebody in a car. But no. Let's get the head of the KGB down there.
Either he wanted to keep this personal, or the KGB are really struggling for staff.
It was a job that they really needed to he was done properly.
Again, I wasn't paying too much attention to how they switched the tapes, and because it turns out he's got their recording, Bond has got their recording, and they've just got the background music of the spa. Always trust Bond to be one step ahead.
Yeah, but his notes aren't exactly extensive.
I've actually written down the words, he makes shit notes.
He hears the word main strike and just puts a question mark and goes, what the fuck's that? Don't know. Main strike. Who knows?
Google it.
Some good spying and some good detective work going on there, Rich.
I mean, I think I've certainly made more notes for this episode than there is. So the next scene, City Hall in San Francisco, James Stock of the London Financial Times sees Stacey in City Hall and follows her back to her house, as you do. I mean, she obviously didn't recognise him as the bloke who tried it on with her and she shot down.
Well, he's playing a different character though, Rich.
Oh, of course, yeah. It's not St. John Smythe anymore.
James Stock now. He's
James Stock.
You wouldn't recognise him. He's like a chameleon.
He's in a grey suede blouse on jacket.
He's like a ghost. He just slips in and out.
He makes shit notes, but he's a damn good spy.
Oh, fuck yeah.
That's why he breaks into her house.
Oh, absolutely. I'll actually. That's one of the small moments that I really love. I love that moment where he's tailing her, and you get that beautiful bit of John Barry's score at that moment. It's like it's that orchestral kind of pastoral version of the View to a Kill theme, as he's just kind of tailing her, and his hair's all flapping in the wind, isn't it? You see him in the car, and where he's got the window open, all his hair's all like flying, fucking going everywhere.
At least it's him.
It's so unkempt looking in that particular scene. But
it's a rarity for Roger.
Which is, exactly, yeah. We watched that particular moment. It's fantastic.
Well, I love the way that he's drawn to her bedroom by the shower. He's thinking, I've tailed this beautiful blonde lady back to a house that I've broken into. Oh, she's in the shower.
Yeah, but she's got a wee surprise from her, hasn't she?
The world's worst gun.
The world's worst gun. I mean, a ridiculous fight. I mean, the banister... The bit where the banister, like Bond hits one of the baddies that's suddenly attacking him. He hits one of them, and it's almost as if the banister's been pre-cut by the special effects. I mean, almost as if, because it just literally it just comes off. Because that's what banisters do, isn't it? When you just lightly touch it, and they just like break in a perfect cut.
There's a lot of banister work going on in these films, because on Octopussy, wasn't it? He was sliding down the banister and shot the thing at the end as he was about to get an early vasectomy done.
And also like the struts as well, like the banister bits, the actual, what do you call them? I mean, there's a technical name for this.
Yeah.
But the actual banister bits, you see it fall off, right? And then the next minute you see like them in bits on the ground, and you're like, what? It fell off in one big bit. It's like, it's just... When you start to break it down shot by shot, like what I've been doing, you're breaking it down, it doesn't make any sense. But when you watch it as a piece of film, it absolutely does make sense. But I guess that's what you call, in inverted commas, editing, isn't it? It's the magic of film.
And bear in mind, we get a lot of not Roger in this scene as well.
Oh, fuck I. Yeah, I mean, straight after, the guy bursts in, and then Roger Moore, sorry, inverted commas, dive forward rolls, doesn't he? Along the banister, along the top of the landing. Unnecessarily.
It looks good.
It looks good, though.
So he manages to fight these Zorin goons off with the rock salt shotgun. And the weird thing I found is he knows the shotgun's useless, and yet when they're leaving, he still fires shots at them, jumping back into their car.
Yeah, and how many shots does he fire?
I dread to think.
It's a shotgun, isn't it? How many shots does a shotgun have? 2. So at some point he reloads it off camera.
Obviously when he's off smoking a cigar he does it.
Exactly. Yet again, Rich, it's like you kind of, at no point am I disbelieving. I'm not watching this thinking, come on, he's not even reloaded the gun.
And there is our pitch for our BBC Three movie gaffs film. Now this is one of the parts afterwards where it's kind of fondly remembered. We learn that Bond can cook. Sort of.
Yeah. What I will mention, just briefly before this moment, right? Just because it was something I noticed because I've been analysing this film and I just noticed it. Bond's fixing the phone line outside, isn't he? Yeah. Fixing the phone line, and you see him outside, and then you see the silhouette of Stacey, and she sort of walks past the window, right? And you hear her walk past. You hear the footsteps, right? And then seconds later, after Bond's finished fixing the phone line, he steps inside and voila, Stacey's in bed. She's changed her outfit and she's asleep.
She's very trusting of this strange man, isn't she?
She's gone from fully clothed to a complete outfit change and she's asleep.
On top of the covers in Not Very Much.
Oh no, but you're right though. I think that is after the infamous quiche scene, though, isn't it? I'm jumping ahead of myself here.
This is the quiche de cabernet, or maybe in this case it's the quiche de rehypnol.
I think quiche. Is this the only time that Bond has cooked for his leading lady in a film?
I think so, because I think the closest we see to anything else is him trying to make coffee for M at the start of Live and Let Die.
Right, of course, yeah, the coffee, yeah. But there's that shot with the cat.
Yeah.
Brilliant. Go back and watch it. You might have missed it, but it's a shot where the cat walks in through the letterbox, and the cat does a bit of acting, walks in, and then the shot pulls back, and you get a bit of a bottle pouring into the glass. And then it pulls back again, and you've got Roger and Tanya just sitting there. And you think, how many times did that take to pull that shot off?
And bear in mind, you're probably relying on a cat to start everything. It's like setting up dominoes.
Totally, yeah. I actually think that the thing with animals in the Bond films is another one of John Glenn's trademarks.
Yeah.
It seems to pop up a lot with various different animals in different films. And he tends to like working with animals. I mean, horses in particular, especially with, Octopussy, he rides a horse. You've got all the horse stuff in View to a Kill.
And the Living Daylights.
Yeah. Oh, and Daylights with the horses. Oh, yeah. Yeah, there's quite a few horses in Daylights, actually, isn't there?
Yeah, there's mostly the bit in Afghanistan, and I suppose she actually calls him a horse's arse.
Calls him horse's arse, yeah.
Back to this, we've had Stacey get sacked for... she is a geologist. I think it's revealed at some point, obviously.
She is, yeah. Very believable.
Yeah, because basically she's from oil money, or that's where her family background is, and that's where and that's why Zorin's interest in her is that he's trying to basically buy her share of the company so that he can use the mines, and it looks like he's trying to do it anyway.
Yeah.
But she trains as a geologist instead, which, fair play. Chuck comes to visit them at the house to talk about the various things that the CIA have got interest in. He's going to do some checks and look into their plan. He gets strangled by Mayday in the back of his whatever vehicle it is.
Signature kill move.
Yeah.
By, yet again, though, Zorin one step ahead, like in Paris, one step ahead. Aubergine gets it in the face. He's one step ahead all the time, isn't he, Zorin?
And it shows as well that Mayday is obviously there and strangles Chuck Lee in the back of his van, and yet she's so close to Bond and Stacey, and yet just thinks, fuck it, I'll just kill this guy.
Just kill this guy, yeah.
Because then we go back to City Hall. Zorin and Mayday burst in on him.
In a good scene, actually. I like that scene.
This is what I remember. The whole... I suppose it can be, if this was made slightly differently, it would be horrific, particularly the part where they're locked in a lift on fire and then Roger Moore leaves her in the lift shaft. Imagine the fear go through her mind for, albeit just a few seconds, of this old bloke's just fucked off.
It's incredibly well done, though, isn't it? They talk about the extras and how obvious it is that it's extras, but the editing is fantastic. It really does look like they are in a burning lift shaft.
Yeah.
It looks very convincing. But I would say the obvious tragedy in this particular scene is the death of Jack, the man at the front door at City Hall. He's there, he's working late, he's got his thermos flask. He's thinking, it's going to be another late night at City Hall. And moments later, he's enjoying a brew from said thermos, and he's shot in the head by Scarpine.
It's the security guard in an 80s Hollywood movie thing. It's like Die Hard.
It's ridiculous. Poor guy, just trying to earn a few extra quid, working evenings, But
he's probably got a childcare bill similar to mine. Oh.
But they make a bit of a kind of a lingering shot of poor Jack, the man, and his thermos.
But we do get when Zorin kills, because he makes up the story and then kills the boss who sacked Stacey. It says, but that means I'd have to be, and Zorin just loves it, going, dead.
But that means I would have to be
Dead. That's rather neat, don't you think?
Brilliant. I'm almost speechless with admiration.
Intuitive improvisation. It's the secret of genius.
Oh, I love him. He's brilliant.
Don't bother Stacey. He's a psychopath.
Yeah.
I love how earnest Roger is in those scenes.
He's working with what he's got. But this is the point, and at no point does he mention, "Don't bother Stacey. He's a Nazi baby."
He could have done at that point. He could have done, didn't he?
That probably would have wound Zorin up more.
Yeah.
You know, she's in the fiery lift shaft. She screams a lot.
She does. She does say that. She does shout the word James a lot in this film. It has to be said.
And she is a full-on. And I mentioned this in the last episode where we talked about sometimes the token role of some women in 80s action films is of the damsel in distress, but she very much is.
Yeah, well, I mean, she just shouts a lot in this film, doesn't she? James! Actually, I did a bit of really sad research as well, and I counted the number of times that she shouts the word James in this film. And do you want to do it as a quiz, or should I just tell you the actual answer?
Is it higher than 15?
It is higher than 15, yeah.
Christ.
Higher than 15. I counted them all.
Go on.
I'll give you the answer. The answer is a stunning 18 times. She shouts James.
Is she on some sort of pay by James contract?
It's ridiculous, isn't it?
So Bond lugs her down the ladder. He is accused of murder by standard fat mustachioed cop, as most fugitives do, make away on a fire truck.
Yeah, as you do. You know what I mean?
This was a good car chase, though.
Okay, it's ridiculous. Yeah, I mean, it's slapstick in the kind of tradition of like the Blues Brothers. You've just got a ridiculous amount of American cop cars just crashing into each other needlessly, but you know, it's entertaining.
And even little parts of it you see a lot, where it's the part where Bond is on the ladder and the ladder is dangling because of course it's not fully secured. It takes the roof off of this recreational vehicle, and there's a couple in there. I'm surprised they're not topless or having sex at the same time or something like that.
It's the look of the policeman though at that moment as well, because he obviously looks across, sees it, and it's that look on his face. It's fantastic. It's just like I love what the direction must have been in that scene. From John Glenn, he must have said, "Look, right, what's happening here? Is the roof's going to get ripped off. You'll see a couple they're shagging, and they've been surprised. And I want you to pretend that you're looking across and seeing this. Go, action."
I need it from your eyes. But we get a Speed-esque. The fire truck jumps over the bridge as it's being raised, and hilarity ensues as cop cars roll down and get squashed and crushed and battered.
The drawbridge, the counterweight of the drawbridge crushing the police captain's car. And he's like, oh!
Imagine writing that off as fair wear and tear. I know.
Yeah, it's great. So what time of night do you think this is all happening then, Rich?
Well, you're imagining that the people at the City Hall are still working.
Yeah. Maybe about
burning
10:30 maybe?
Yeah, burning the 1030 oil.
Right. So, and then basically the next thing you see is them driving the fire truck, don't you?
Yeah.
The mine. So, are we to assume that he's been driving all night? But no, he's not, because he's in San Francisco, and the mine is supposed to be in San Francisco, isn't it?
Even if it's the other side of the bay, you're talking maybe an hour.
Yeah.
Most.
You've been told to suspend disbelief.
Yeah. Don't think about these too much.
It's not real.
But then the bomb is supposed to go off at 9:41. So, yes. Moving on. Bond arrives in the fire truck, and I'm not sure which part of legislation he uses while driving the fire truck. Pulls over the van driving the explosives. But although the funny line of "Where's the fire?" and Roger Moore's "On your rear end."
Love that.
And then I've just written here, lots of Zorin branding everywhere.
Oh, it's bloody everywhere, yeah. I love the moment when he punches the guy and Roger kind of like shakes his hand, she's Harry's hand. It's just a moment of realism that Roger put into that little moment. But yeah, the branding is everywhere. As my job, I kind of deal with branding and such. I noticed all the branding in this film, and it is everywhere, isn't it? Everywhere. Patches, the hats, and just everywhere you look. He's the most brand-conscious villain in the whole series, I would say.
Yeah.
Of all of them, he's the one that really kind of thinks about it. I mean, he's thought about this, and he's thought, where can I put a logo, you know?
Hiding in plain sight. They're even on Stacey Sutton's super tailored overalls.
Oh.
With the high heels, and then was it Women's Lib or something like that?
Taking over the Teamsters.
You can imagine him shaking his fist going, "Oh, women."
So it's the Amberley Chalk Pits Museum in Sussex.
Yeah.
I've not been to, but I've seen quite a few pictures. I've seen John Rain posted some pictures on Twitter, and Tim Greaves, another guy on Twitter, he sent some pictures as well. There's still props with the Zorin logo on them, which is fantastic.
It's quite the tourist hotspot for Bond fans.
Oh, for sure, yeah. Yeah, I'm going to have to go there at some point. Take a couple of pictures.
Come back with a get a Zorin for me. We make it into the mine, which is really one of the stages at Pinewood. And this is where it is, you know, there's the sort of tannoy announcements, and this is where it does feel again like Stromberg's bait on the Liparis or Moonraker. It does feel like that sort of grand set piece, you know, it's all been designed. We find another customised screen table of the bomb site, which must have come from the same manufacturer as the one on the airship.
Yeah, and it's fantastic as well, the little details as well, how all the little mines on that little map in the little thing, they're all green.
Yeah.
Which is also his colour, his branded colour as well. It's all thought about, it's all very carefully thought about. And there's lots of bits throughout the film as well where there's a green tinge to something, or there's a green light, or there's something green, but it all ties in with the whole branding thing.
Is that like if it was set now and it was the guy who does EasyJet and everything would be orange?
Yeah, it'd have to be, wouldn't it?
I mean, it's funny, I should have mentioned this at the beginning, and there's the whole disclaimer at the start, where at the start of the film it says neither the name Zorin nor any other name or character in this film is meant to portray a real company or actual person, until you actually look into it. And yeah, it really does, doesn't it?
I just think it makes sense for an 80s villain to be so brand conscious, you know?
But when you bear in mind that there was a Silicon Valley based electronic company called Zoran Corporation who were integral in the manufacturing of circuits and so on. I know, you know, times are different now, but who does the research into this?
Somebody does.
Yeah, but then there's apparently a thing where saying that apparently the name Zoran is derived from the Hebrew word for silicon.
Oh, is that right?
Yeah, so I wonder if that was it. Still, fucking hell, come on, people.
This coming up though is like one of the most it's quite a controversial villain scene, isn't it? With Walcom when he's gunning down all of his employees with machine guns.
Yeah.
It gets talked about quite a lot, how it's such a violent scene. And it was possibly one of the moments that David Bowie read that turned him off. I mean, I think Bowie, to be honest, Bowie maybe just preferred to work with George Lucas and Jim Henson.
I mean, it is funny if that was a reason, because bear in mind the whole plot of this guy being a psychotic Nazi baby, becoming evil and shooting employees, you know, because bear in mind these are people who are potential whistleblowers / grasses. You've kind of got to take it that you've got to cut off all the loose ends, haven't you?
Yeah. And this is where he kind of gets rid of Connolly at this point, isn't it?
I mean, I shouldn't be taking sides with Zorin here, but you can see his reasoning. Maybe it's just the fact that he seems to be enjoying it so much.
Yeah, absolutely. And I know the line where kind of after he's done the terrible carnage of gunning down all his employees, he's doing the kind of right on schedule.
Yeah.
It's good.
I mean, I find it perfectly in keeping, but hey-ho. I mean, he's dressed as looking like he's just off to play a round of golf with a machine gun and a Zorin hard hat.
Which is also branded as well, isn't it?
Actually, does his blazer have Zorin on it, I wonder?
I don't know if it does. I'd have to go and check. I wouldn't be surprised.
But yeah, and this is, I suppose, because Mayday is off trying to get Bond and Stacy. She gets caught in the mine as it's flooded. This is where she realised that she's been double-crossed. You know, this was I thought that creep loved me.
Yeah.
It doesn't take a lot. I suppose it's just your ex-boyfriend or boyfriend trying to have you killed as a natural disaster. I suppose it doesn't take a lot to turn her the other way.
Yeah, well, it just shows how uncaring he is, doesn't it? Because he's got a mission. He's trying to complete his mission, and she's fucked off to try and get Bond back, get Bond. And what's he going to do? You know what I mean? He's going to like jeopardize the whole operation by going off and looking for Mayday. He's just like, well, you know, she's expendable at this stage.
I'll get Dr. Carl to make me another woman.
Exactly. And also, soon after this, we get to see another example of Mayday's terrific strength, isn't it?
Yeah.
Because earlier in the film, we see Conley. He's been lowered into the pit, isn't he? With the TNT. Yeah. So you've got the bags, I should say, are all they've all got logos on them as well. All the individual TNT bags all have the Zorn logo on as well, which is brilliant. But anyway, so that scene, you see about 3 or 4 different guys lowering Conley into the pit. So when you see Mayday do it on her own, that's a further suggestion, I think, that she's one of the modified people, the sort of genetically enhanced people.
Yeah.
Which they don't really kind of make a thing of, but I guess that's why she could do what she could do.
I think it explains a lot anyway.
And that set, while we're talking about that particular that set, that particular mine, that pit where the TNT is, it's brilliant.
Yeah.
Beautiful looking set.
The whole thing was done really well. I mean, bear in mind that I know they'd had the fire at Pinewood. Sort of, was it during or just before the making of this? And to come back with something, you know, on that scale.
Yeah, I mean, epic.
Yeah.
Completely epic. Works a treat. And it's as a Bond set should be. I mean, it's the kind of Bond set that I think fans of the modern era, or kind of fans of the older era that are enjoying the Bond still, are missing, I think, a little bit. I think they missed those big, lavish sets.
I guess these days it would all be CGI if they're going to do anything like that.
It's just, I don't know. I mean, I guess they kind of there's a big set in Vector. I bet it's like a CG enhanced set. It doesn't feel particularly big and epic. And before that, it was Quantum, where you got the hotel, but it didn't feel like that was a real place, wasn't it? But it didn't feel on the scale of the kind of Peter Lamont era and Ken Adam.
Yeah. I mean, they were just on another planet, really, weren't they?
Yeah.
I guess in Moonraker, that's kind of true. So the bomb, which is going to set off all these explosives to set off the double earthquake over my head. So because Mayday helps Bond get the bomb out. Now this is the part where she essentially sacrifices herself. Now in order to get the bomb out of the mine, she has to hold the brake because she's so freakishly strong. Because Roger Moore is shown as bumbling by tripping over the rail. And she's... this is the bit where I always remember is get Zorin for me.
I love it. It's the expression of Walken as well, isn't it? When he sees what's happening.
Yeah.
It's great.
Because he's flown off to Silicon Valley and then comes back to watch the explosion. Now he must be pretty confident that the explosion isn't going to cause any damage to his probably quite fragile airship.
Definitely, yeah.
But at least he gets to see her being the one who carts the bomb out.
And I feel that this is like a missed opportunity for Zorin in a way. What he should have had is his logo on the bomb itself. Do you know what I mean? I mean, fuck. I mean, that would have been great.
I mean, the funny thing is, though, is I guess it wouldn't have mattered if the bomb had gone off, but now if anyone goes back to investigate all this stuff, they're going to find Zorin Industries branding everywhere. They're going to find hundreds of corpses.
Yeah, it's not going to take them too long to figure out what happened.
Yeah. So I wonder if this Zorin bloke has anything to do with it. No, he's a leading French industrialist.
It can't be him.
Don't be daft.
Couldn't possibly be him.
Now, as Bond bimbles out of the mine and Stacy runs down the hill shouting again, James, James, she is grabbed by not Zorin. And
it's not everybody in this scene.
Yeah, it's not anyone. It's like the scene in Spaceballs where everyone's the stunt double. So she gets hauled into the airship as it flies off. Bond hangs onto the front rope of the airship, which I don't know is a thing. And Zorin's taken the foiling of his plan quite well, because he's like, right, I'm going to take it out on this bloke hanging off the front of my blimp. So I don't know, there's some good technique, because they managed to fly the blimp near a skyscraper and get Bond an aerial twanging off his balls.
Yeah, he's basically trying to kind of emasculate James Bond. I mean,
yeah.
In the most embarrassing way you can think of at that moment. And I don't know, does he succeed? No, I don't think he does he?
I think it's so high up, no one can really make out it's him.
I love the ADR from Roger. Ooh.
This'll hurt him more than me.
Love it. I mean, those scenes are epic, though, aren't they? I mean, the scenes of the stunt double hanging off that rope, the shot and the way it's been, the cinematography is actually fantastic.
But this is the lead up to the sort of final battle with the Golden Gate Bridge, and Bond, I suppose, takes advantage of the fact that he's got a long rope. They try and twat him into the bridge. I think that's the technical term.
It is the technical term.
He ties the rope to the bridge, and all of a sudden this blimp it's fucked, really. It's stranded. I suppose if you're driving along the bridge at that time, that must be an odd sight. Seeing this blimp just suddenly stop next to the bridge.
Quite impressive from John Glenn's point of view, the director, that he managed to squeeze in two major tourist attractions, international tourist attractions, into the film. I mean, got the Eiffel Tower and the Golden Gate Bridge into the same film. It's great.
Yeah, bookends the film nicely.
Yeah, perfect.
Now, the one thing I did was similar to the Octopussy, when Zorin shouts at the security guy to go out and get him. And this was what happened in the plane at the end of Octopussy, wasn't it? When Khan shouts at his goon, sort of climb out onto the plane.
Yeah.
And he gets that look of, fuck off.
Well, out there?
You bad?
It's the exact same moment, isn't it, from Octopussy? But at least Govinda, funnily enough, gets a line where he says out there, doesn't he?
Yeah.
He's been silent pretty much the whole film, and then he says out there. I just love how bloodshot Scarpion's eyes look in that moment. He just looks so freaking like what? But again, the true villain of the piece is Hans Glaub here, isn't he?
Yeah.
That's thought of everything.
Because what airship is complete without a fridge full of dynamite?
Because that's where you keep dynamite, Rich.
Well, if you're going to keep it anyway, you keep it in the fridge. But
it's the most stable place to keep dynamite. You're not going to keep it just on the seat. You want to keep it nice and cool.
I mean, that's the thing. I mean, I got a new car last week, and I should have thought when I looked at it, where should I keep the dynamite?
That's what anybody thinks, really, isn't it?
Yeah.
I need a safe place to keep my dynamite. I'll put it in my little mini fridge.
Yeah.
I won't bother filling it with beers to celebrate after we've flooded Silicon Valley. I'll take the dynamite. You never know.
I mean, if that's a minibar fridge, you wouldn't want to be in a Zorin hotel, would you? Stacey's jumped out of the airship. How she didn't fall off, I never fucking know. Zorin, in his desperation, grabs an axe and just swings like a lunatic. And I haven't written too many notes about the fight.
But I think at the same time, I think they did. They got the most out of the location. I mean, like the stunt doubles. Was it Martin Grace that was stunt doubling Roger, I think? And there's some good moments where they're clearly at the top of the Golden Gate Bridge. But there's some just great editing, because there was different sizes of Golden Gate Bridge, wasn't there, built for this film?
Yeah. And
they basically cut them all together just so well. It still holds up to a degree, I think.
Yeah. And as you mentioned, the part where, because this is the point when Zorin slips and falls, and it's the part where you've cut that bit in, and it still looks, even if it's him laughing, whether it's in character or not, it works so well.
I mean, Willoughby Gray, who plays Carl Mortner, I mean, he's one of the highlights of the film, isn't he? He has to be. And the moment, I mean, the moment when he's shouting Max, Max. It's hilarious.
It's like a little puppy.
It's so comic booky. The bit where Zorin falls to his death, Well, we say death. It doesn't look. I look like I could survive that fall. I look at it, but then Zorin falls, and then we get another shot of Stacy going, "James," one more time, and then you get to see that really fucking hilariously comical scene of him standing there with the lit dynamite.
I'll get you.
It's so comic booky, but it's brilliant.
Yeah.
It's brilliant. It's so funny.
And just a bit of slapstick where, because Bond has cut the rope, obviously the airship suddenly moves, and you've got Dr. Nazi and the security geezer sort of basically scrabbling around looking for a lit roll of dynamite.
And you get that kind of, if you pause the DVD as well, or the Blu-ray I should say, there's a look of absolute joy on Willoughby Gray's face in the milliseconds before he's blown to smithereens. He just looks so happy.
Immortality.
Yeah, it's a good moment.
I suppose it must be difficult, because if he says, "What's my motivation for this role?" and in this scene it's like, so you're a Nazi genetic scientist, your pride and joy has just been chucked off a bridge, and you're holding a roll of dynamite. Just act in the moment.
What a role, isn't it? What a great role. And he plays it so well.
Yeah.
For an English actor as well.
Bond and Stacey are absolutely fine, and we just get the line, "There's never a cab when you want one."
Brilliant. All due respect to Roger, but he looks so old in that shot, doesn't he? It looks like the facelift's starting to kind of like loosen up a little bit.
He's been through a lot, bless him.
He has, yeah. I mean, love Roger Moore. Never let it be not said. The man was a gent and a legend. I don't have a bad word said about him.
No.
But he does look a bit old in that last.
True, but hey ho. He's we cut to Gogol, and so he's in the office with M, laughing about how the Soviets basically rip off everything out of Silicon Valley, and giving Bond the Order of Lenin. Q's toy makes a reappearance.
Does, yeah.
He's in a dodgy looking caravan parked outside. So, because they're making I suppose the party line that Bond is missing as presumed dead.
You know, so what they're going to do, they're going to send Q out there.
Send Q in his caravan to look at the last... Right, who was the last woman we believe he had relations with? Right, let's send a robot into her shower.
I love that Q's got a Union Jack mug as well. It's so British. I have him with a Union Jack mug. But somehow he gets the snooper robot gets up the stairs now. I'm happy to just believe it.
I don't think that house was built with accessibility and step-free access in mind.
But yeah, basically Q's been a big power here, isn't
he? Yeah.
He must know what's going on. Like halfway along the landing, he's seen all the discarded clothes, hearing the kind of the sounds from the bathroom. He must have an idea what's going on. But does it stop him?
Oh no, dirty bastard!
I want to keep going. I want to see what I can see here, using Her Majesty's finest surveillance equipment.
Yeah, it's not voyeurism if they don't catch you.
I don't know if have you ever watched? I mean, the last moments of this film, if you watched it with the subtitles on, it's actually it gives it an added dimension.
Oh no!
Because if you watch it with the subtitles on, you hear Bond saying, "Oh, a bit of soap there, it's a bit of soap here, and a bit of soap here," and then he says, "Oh drat, I dropped the soap."
Oh God!
And Stacey says, "I'll get it." Woo! And then Bond says, "That's not the soap."
Jesus.
That is not the soap.
So if that's in the subtitles, that must have been in the script.
Now, it's at this moment, Rich, as well. I sent you a message on on Twitter, and it's for a bit of product placement.
Am I allowed to look now?
Yes, you are allowed to look. It plays into this moment. Now, product placement. So, in 1985, the company Wrights produced the original coal tar soap with the View to a Kill tie-in.
Oh.
Now, are we led to believe that the soap that Bond is soaping up Stacey with at the end is a bar of Wright's original coal tar soap?
Available at Boots.
Bill Boots. But that's the tie-in, isn't it?
Bloody
it's the tie-in.
Soap.
It's brilliant. Brilliant.
Coal tar soap. And on the second picture you sent, they have the exclusive James Bond watch. I had that.
You had that?
I had that watch.
Yeah, is that the one that played the James Bond tune?
Yeah.
Yeah. But it's not that good a deal, though. If you look at the back, it says, exclusive James Bond 007 watch, worth at least $12.99.
Yeah.
Yours for $7.99.
So you save a fiver.
You'd think you'd get it for $4.99, wouldn't you?
You probably have to pay postage and packaging as well. I love the thing. It's I love the tagline: "Keep Wright's coal tar soap handy when you're in hot water."
Exactly.
Oh, smooth.
What a bit of product placement that is.
I love that.
That is fantastic. I love that. Yeah, it's possibly one of my favourite Bond promotional tie-ins ever.
And what a perfect product placement for Roger Moore's final utterings as James Bond 007.
Oh, James.
It's literally carry on. Roger literally throws in the towel at the end as well, doesn't he?
Yeah, symbolic.
It's a beautiful moment.
Q scurries off in his caravan. He didn't catch or anything. The shower curtain was in the way.
He's going to have to make his way all the way back to London again from San Francisco. Thinking, oh, fuck, I feel a bit dirty now. I mean,
Bond's caught me again.
He's caught me. I've just, don't know what I'm going to say. He's going to have to write a report about that, isn't he?
Jesus.
But product placements, though, in that film were, as per any Bond film, they were rife in that film. I mean, I wrote down a few of them here, which was Michelin tires, obviously, because the Stolichnaya vodka, Philips, who else? We got Apple computers. Yeah, Stacey's got an Apple.
Yeah.
I think, was it an Apple II she's got? It's not an Apple. It's not the first Apple. It's like an Apple.
Sure.
I think it's an Apple II. It's the one that she's monitoring the
Geiger. Yeah.
And what else have we got? We've got Whiskers.
Of course.
the official tie-in, Whiskers, because he mentions it, doesn't he?
Yeah.
When you get asked for dinner and he goes, "Oh, what you got? Whiskers." But then nobody knew in America what Whiskers was, did they? Because it wasn't sold as Whiskers in America, was it? It was totally lost on the entire American audience at the time, because theirs was being sold as Cal Can.
Cow. Yeah.
Cal Can. Yeah. So a bit rubbish. Yeah.
It's a special film.
Yeah.
I mean, we've spent 2.5 hours talking about a 2-hour film.
Is that have we been going for 2.5 hours, Rich?
Yep.
Oh. Fucking hell. And to be honest, I'm not quite finished either.
Lovely.
Not quite. Sorry, we're going to be boring the audience here. Fucking something rotten here, right? But I do have a few stats.
Go ahead.
I collected. One of the stats that I wanted to know was how many minutes of screen time the stuntmen were on screen. So for the 2 hours and 8 minutes, 42 seconds of runtime of the film, right? Bond is on screen for a total of, and I did this very scientifically as well, very scientifically. But yeah, Bond as a character is on screen for 1 hour and 2.5 minutes.
Okay.
The stuntmen are on screen for 6 minutes and 50 seconds. But with that in mind, that means Roger, by that deduction, Roger was on screen for roughly 55 minutes. So Roger on screen for 55 minutes. Guess how many times he raised his eyebrow in quintessential Roger fashion?
12.
Higher.
16.
Higher.
Oh, 20.
Higher, Rich.
Oh,
higher.
no. My eyebrows don't go that high. 30.
I'm sorry, Rich, but it was 44 times. Right? 44 times, right? So, bearing in mind that Roger was on screen for 55 minutes, that averages out an eyebrow raise every 1 minute 15 seconds.
That is exceptional.
That's roughly how often it's going on, you know?
And that is why soap companies pay top dollar to be associated with these films.
The research has not come to naught.
We have been planning this for a long time.
One of the things we did on Twitter was we asked people for their 10 word reviews of A View to a Kill. We had quite a few, so we should probably just read out a few of the best ones rather than read them all out.
Yeah.
Because there was quite a few. But did you had a few, didn't you, Rich?
Yeah, so I read out Barnaby's earlier from Mark Russell, who ingeniously said that San Francisco is one word. Nazi eugenics blimp explodes over San Francisco. Microchips a dull plot. And Jimmy Fletcher, Christopher Walken is the best Bond villain of all time.
That's great.
Like those. So what were your favourites?
One of my favourites was, let's have a look here. We've got Vince Stadon. I think he said, "Facing you, now you're over the hill." that was his. Who else have we got here? We've got Tim Postins at Positions. Quiche. Bond cooks a quiche. Seriously, I'm not kidding. Don't want to miss any out here. Peter Brooker from Human Research and from Tailored with Love podcast, he said, his reviews, "Those that slate this thing of beauty, they truly know nothing." So there you go.
What was I remember there was one that we got sent. We engineered it back to Roger Moore is Ian Fleming's James Bond 007 in Quiche and Nazis.
In Quiche and Nazis, yeah. Another one, yeah. Well, I've got another one here. Seawoods at PC Wood 6. An old warhorse ends the scheme of a Nazi brat.
Yeah,
that's his one. Yeah, Rob B movie cult. He says blimp, slide, St John Smythe, quiche, car tire, air source, perfect. So
to the point, like it.
Yeah, there's another one here. Villain Ashel's villain dies because he's laughing at his Nazi mentor. Quite like that one. Quite like that one as well. Yeah, I'm trying to find ones that are kind of a bit more derogatory, just to sort of balance it out, because we don't want to be doing a love in for View to a Kill.
Well, I know we had quite a couple of people said it was. They referred to it as like a Marmite Bond, didn't they?
Yeah. Well, Nathan Brown here, Nathan Brown 95, he says, badly acted, badly written, badly illogical, poor ending for Roger. Each to their own.
Badly acted.
But mostly good, mostly kind words, though, I should say.
Yeah, I mean, I loved it. I feel no shame.
Mayday, where have you been? I've been waiting for you to take care of me personally.
Marty, that was A View to a Kill. Now, your work on fundables.org is an absolute thing of beauty. I know that the website relaunched fairly recently with just an absolute Aladdin's cave of Bond photographs and stills and everything. Will you tell us a little bit more about what we can find?
I mean, it covers the entire Eon Productions output from 62 through to 2015, and even some Bond 25 stuff as well. We started putting things on, although I've kind of stopped short, because part of the thing with the site is it's a chronology-based collection of pictures from films, so I can't really put them on the site in a meaningful way that ties in with the rest of it. But we do have another Thunderballs member is on the case, compiling every single press footage of the behind-the-scenes stuff. I've been sent like a collection of images that he's already started collecting. It's an incredible amount of pictures. Well, we tried to make it as comprehensive as possible. It was basically a site created by accident, which is a bit crazy, because if I'd known it was going to take as long as it has to make it work, I don't think I would have attempted it.
You stumble into these things.
Yeah, it wasn't the plan. It certainly wasn't the plan, but I'm glad we've done it. Yeah, there was a certain point where we kind of realised that there wasn't really anything quite like it on the internet. They'd catalogued and tried to kind of assemble and make sense of all the production stills that were out there on the internet.
I like some of even the small touches. There's the the more pictures touch.
Yeah, just one of those. That was a bit of a last minute thing, but yeah. That's a nod to how much I love Roger Moore. Because I grew up during that era. Moore will always be a favourite of mine.
Yeah,
I'm a big fan of Timothy Dalton. I think I make that quite clear on Twitter. But Roger Moore was was a hero, always will be.
So, I mean, I've been lucky enough that I know you sent me a few of the shots of, the prep for this. Just seeing, the scope of the production and how far it went, and even these things that you don't always assume that go on. I mean, if things like Roger Moore in a feeler jacket over a dinner suit, just little things like that. And I mean, I'll always love the photos of him and Cubby Broccoli playing backgammon.
Yeah, totally. Yeah, I mean, to be honest, when we were putting the site together, like there was lots of kind of peaks and kind of moments of elation finding certain images. For View to a Kill, I got a big thrill out of finding the images of Moore and McNee behind the scenes, and Moore's wearing the velour tracksuit, the feeler tracksuit. But it's just them at the Renault plant, the Norman Foster Renault plant, and it's just them walking backstage. I mean, but it was just so exciting seeing those pictures because I'd never seen them before, and they were just from a local newspaper, on a local newspaper website as well. Just such brilliant pictures to see. I love seeing those very kind of just matter of fact kind of pictures, which shouldn't be that exciting. Seeing just basically two pictures of two old blokes, but really good just seeing them anyway. I'm glad that they've been made available.
Yeah, I mean, I guess we're in that Bond world where people are always, hungry for new stuff, whether it's, behind the scenes stuff of Bond 25 or, something that just shows a little bit of the magic. We talked about the scenes between McNee and Roger Moore, and even photos like that where you just see a little bit of a window into what was going on. I've spent hours pouring through there, obviously a lot in prep for doing the last couple of pods, but I mean, there's so much other stuff on there as well. As you say, you go all the way back to Dr. No. It's just amazing the amount of stuff that goes in, and these photographs that in most cases certainly haven't seen the light of day or certainly haven't had any sort of audience. And just to see them all in one place, it is literally the sort of place you could get lost in.
There was a lot of press photography that was sent out to. There was a lot of photography that was taken on set by production stills, official production stills photographers, that was sent out to press agencies during the making of the film to promote it, the various films. But then they never asked for these prints back. So there's all this kind of very rare stills out there that are not held by the official Eon archive.
It's amazing.
So there's lots of collectors out there that have things that Eon don't even have, and that they're probably actively trying to get back. I mean, there's a lot that you see even just on eBay that are these very rare stills that have been autographed over the years, but that's maybe the only time you'll see that image,
And they'd be holding this stuff to ransom.
But there's some incredible stuff out there, yeah, amazing stuff. And we've been very fortunate in the when we first started the site, we basically just sourced everything from the internet, and we've been searching dark corners of the internet. I've recently, myself and my collaborator Joe Allen, who's been helping with the site, we've been looking at Russian websites, using Russian search engines, and we've been finding lots and lots of stuff as well, like amazing stuff. But the thing that's pushed it to the next level recently is we've been working with some private collectors, and they've been sending us some stuff. So we've got coming up on the site, we've got some bloody amazing pictures from behind the scenes of GoldenEye, The World Is Not Enough, Live and Let Die, View to a Kill as well, some brilliant pictures for that. We've got some nice pictures from Die Another Day, astonishing production stills from Die Another Day, and if you're not a fan of it. But yeah, so these collectors have been sending us images. We've had the guy from America, Terry Hine, who's been sending stuff, and another collector called Julian Keane has been sending some stuff, as well as Tim Greaves as well. So this kind of help that we've been getting is just really pushing it to another place. So stay tuned.
I mean, it's fundables.org, and I know you put some snippets on Twitter and Instagram, but that's just literally the tip of the iceberg. I mean, get to the website. I want to say it's ridiculous, but I know how much work you and the other guys have put into it. But yeah, absolutely phenomenal.
Yeah, well, it's there. We hope that fans are just able to use it as a resource, and the real fans of the series, I should say, can just go to a moment, I mean, because all the fans of the Bond films, they know the films kind of pretty well, and they can just kind of jump to a moment and hopefully find something that they've not seen before.
Yeah. Well, as I say, I'll be putting all the links on the show notes to here. There'll be plenty of retweeting and sharing and mentions and stuff, but I'll put the link to the website. It's there. It's thunderballs.org. And you talked about it when you did Pete and Matt's podcast before, but yeah, anyone with any interest in, and it's not even Bond, I mean, it's just the sort of thing that go behind the scenes of any sort of large production, just to give you an insight. But I mean, it's absolutely crazy. You could lose weeks in there. But yeah, knowing this stuff, and there's probably still more that's yet to be unearthed. Marty, thank you very much for coming along. This has been an absolute joy for the however many months we've discussed doing this, and any excuse to crack open the books and the films and all the bits and bobs. Yeah, thank you very much.
Thanks for having me.
No, and as I'll try and keep to some tradition for the podcast. Now, as fans know, normally try and play out the song that was number one at the time of the film's release. Now, in the UK, A View to a Kill was released on the 13th of June 1985. Number one single when that came out was 19 by Paul Hardcastle. I'm not going to play it because, one, I played it at the end of the Breakfast Club episode, but two, now Martin and I discussed this on Twitter a few weeks ago, Duran Duran played A View to a Kill at Live Aid in 1985. Now, I won't play the whole song, but I'll play a section towards the end. That's well worth listening to. There are conspiracy theories abound on the web, but yeah, hey ho, it's fun, it's entertaining, it's one of the best Bond themes, and enjoy. So, Marty, thanks very much.
Thank you, Rich.
I'll speak to you soon.